लोगों को मैं देख रहा हूँ। हर्ष सिंह, अंकित कुमार, अंकित जी, आंचल श्रीवास्तव, अंबुज। आप सबसे मेरी रिक्वेस्ट है कि आप लोग अपना वीडियो कैमरा ऑन कर लें। और मैं इसलिए कह रहा हूँ क्योंकि आपको ऐसी ऐसी आईआर की क्लास शायद कहीं ना मिले, मतलब। तो इसलिए आप सबसे मेरी रिक्वेस्ट है कि आप लोग अपना वीडियो कैमरा जरूर ऑन कर लें। दोस्तों, मैं सर का परिचय करा देता हूँ। माननीय श्री श्री सतीश मेहता सर। सतीश मेहता सर 1983 बैच के इंडियन फॉरेन सर्विस के ऑफिसर हैं। और आपने 1980 में इंडियन पुलिस सर्विस ज्वाइन की थी। उसके बाद 1983 में आपने इंडियन फॉरेन सर्विस ज्वाइन की। आपने, जैसे सतीश मेहता सर ने फ्रांस में, आइवरी कोस्ट में, इटली में, इंडियन मिशन टू यूनाइटेड नेशंस, न्यूयॉर्क, इसराइल, कनाडा, कुवैत, कई जगह आपने काम किया है ना। इसराइल, कनाडा और कुवैत कुवैत में आप एम्बेसडर रहे। यूनाइटेड नेशंस पीस कीपिंग मिशन जो था हैती में, उसके आप पॉलिटिकल एडवाइजर थे। आपने अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी और आई के गुजराल जी, जो भारत के प्रधानमंत्री थे, आपने उनके ऑफिस में उनके साथ भी स्ट्रेटेजिक सेक्टर को डील करने के लिए काम किया। आप डायरेक्टर जनरल इंडियन काउंसिल फॉर कल्चरल रिलेशंस के डायरेक्टर जनरल के रूप में रिटायर हुए। आप अभी, हमको पता है कि महावीर विकलांग सहायता समिति जो बड़े पैमाने पर जो भी हैंडीकैप लोग होते हैं उनको आर्टिफिशियल लिम्ब लगाने का काम करती है, उसके आप एग्जीक्यूटिव प्रेसिडेंट हैं। और 100 से ज्यादा जयपुर फुट के कैंप, मतलब बाहर बहुत जगह पर आपने लगाया है। और दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा ये ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है जो रिहेबिलिटेशन में काम करता है हैंडीकैप लोगों के। आपकी शिक्षा वैसे तो क्वालिफाइड चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट हैं। और आप ग्लोबल एडवाइजरी बोर्ड शूलिच बिजनेस स्कूल के आप मेंबर हैं। यॉर्क यूनिवर्सिटी टोरंटो के, जो दुनिया के 20 बिजनेस स्कूल में है। जैसे ये तो कुछ मैंने आपको परिचय करा दिया, लेकिन मेरा ये कहना है कि हमने सर के साथ एक जयपुर से अजमेर तक प्रवास किया, तो मुझे लगता है कि जितने भी नए फॉरेन सर्विस के ऑफिसर हैं और जिनको भी रुचि है, जिनको आईआर में रुचि है, उनको सर के साथ बैठ के बात करना चाहिए। और कई कई दिनों तक बातें हो सकती है। आपके कई छोटे छोटे आइडियाज और स्टेप्स ने कभी बहुत ही बड़ा और परिवर्तनकारी, चमत्कारी काम भी किया है। वो चाहे यूनाइटेड नेशंस में हो, वो चाहे हमारे इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस में हो भारत के लिए। जैसे सर ने नेपाल और भूटान के साथ, मतलब भारत की तरफ से काफी काम किया है। तो मुझसे कुछ गलती हुई हो तो सर क्षमा करें। और मैं सतीश मेहता सर से रिक्वेस्ट करता हूं कि आप अपने लेक्चर को प्रारंभ करें। फ्रेंड्स, इससे पहले जब सर ऑफलाइन लेक्चर लेते थे तो करीब करीब 400 स्टूडेंट 4-4 घंटे तक लेक्चर सुनते थे और अपने क्वेश्चन उनके साथ करते थे। तो आपसे भी मेरी रिक्वेस्ट है कि आपके जितने भी डाउट्स हैं आप यहाँ से क्लियर करके जाएं और इस लेक्चर को पूरी तरह एंजॉय करें। सतीश मेहता सर, मैं आपसे विनती करता हूं और पुनः क्षमा प्रार्थी हूं। कृपया आप अपना लेक्चर प्रारंभ करें। इंटरेक्शन।
नमस्कार राजू जी। सो व्हाट आई विल, मैं हिंदी में और इंग्लिश दोनों में बोलूंगा। आई होप आप लोगों के लिए आसान रहेगा। और यू वांट मी टू स्पीक इन ओनली इंग्लिश? और हिंदी?
फ्रेंड्स, कोई ऐसा है जिनको हिंदी ना समझ में आती हो? इस ग्रुप में कोई है तो कृपया माइक्रोफोन ऑन करके बोल दें।
Sir, Jain,
और
sir,
कोई ऐसा भी, सॉरी
sorry to interrupt. Sir, some of us, we know only English, sir. It would be more comfortable if we can interact in English, sir.
Fair point. So I'll only speak in English.
Thank you, sir.
और जिनको जो ऐसे हो जिनको
use some
इंग्लिश
Hindi
ना
words.
आती हो वो भी सर से बोल सकते हैं। सॉरी सर।
No problem, sir. So thank you very much. What we'll do is, on the screen you will see a presentation, and I'll start with that. And after each few slides, I will stop and take some questions, so that it becomes interactive and you don't have to listen to a long 1.5 hour lecture, which can, even if it's a very interesting subject like international relations, does become a bit strenuous. So Rajuji, could you please start the slides? And when I say next, तब आप दूसरा slide दिखा दीजिएगा.
जी सर। शैलेंद्र जी।
Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so I think it's important to understand the broad principles on which India's foreign policy is based, and also what is the purpose of our foreign policy. What are things that we seek to achieve through our foreign policy? That's very important to understand. So the broad principles of India's foreign policy are basically a belief in friendly relations with all countries of the world, the resolution of conflicts by peaceful means, the sovereign equality of all states, independence of thought and action, and equity in the conduct of international relations. And I can honestly say that we have adhered to these broad principles over the last 7 decades. Now, what is the purpose of our foreign policy? So broadly, the purpose of the foreign policy that we pursue could be divided into 2 parts. First is to promote India's domestic agenda of development, prosperity, and the second part is to have peace. So coming to the first part, our domestic agenda of development and prosperity, foreign policy serves to help secure capital, open up export markets. पिछली slide पे जाइए, change slide only when I ask you. Open up export markets, access technology, create employment opportunities abroad, assure raw materials which we lack, and oil is a prime example of it. Number of other critical rare minerals are also other examples of that. Next slide, please. Yeah. The second part is ensuring India's security. So the first is territorial security and integrity of India. Second is protect ourselves from cross-border terrorism. Third is energy security. Fourth is food security. And fifth is environment security. Some of these, like energy security and food security, are also very relevant for our domestic agenda of development and prosperity. So they are cross-cutting. Next slide, please. What are the challenges we face when we craft our foreign policy? And that's important because it's not cast in iron. You have to constantly improvise, be very nimble-footed to adjust to emerging realities. So the important challenges are unpredictability, complexity, and ambiguity. When things will happen, what will happen, often can become unpredictable. And the two prime examples are the Ukraine, Russia's special military operations in Ukraine. It took everyone by surprise. The 7th October 2023 vicious attack on Israel, it just took everyone by surprise. So that's the unpredictable nature of things. Complexity, because a lot of issues and a lot of countries get entangled when things happen. And it does cause a lot of complexity when you take decisions or when you navigate these. The last point is ambiguity. We don't know why exactly the actions that were taken. For example, October 7, Hamas attack on Israel. We can do a lot of guesswork on that, but we really don't know what was the reason why this attack happened at that particular point of time. And that's the ambiguity that we have to deal with. Post-COVID and Ukraine conflict, headwinds for the economy. So the world economy still hasn't emerged fully from the COVID, as also from the Ukraine conflict, because Ukraine is a major center for food, fertilizers, and some other essential commodities. And because of the Ukraine war, a lot of it went into disruption. We increasingly see protectionist and isolationist trends globally, which means creating regional groupings, trade pacts within small groups or a set of countries, barriers being put, both tariff and non-tariff barriers. And during the Trump 1 and perhaps again during the Trump 2, a certain approach towards isolationist trends. Growing radicalism in some Islamic countries, you are familiar with it and you can see this happening. Turbulence in the Gulf and Middle East, Gaza, Syria, Houthi attacks are some of them. Collapse of Syria adds to this complexity. Ever-increasing assertiveness and aggressiveness of China, mainly seen in the Taiwan Strait or South China Sea, but elsewhere also. We faced it for 4 years since Galwan. Both Chinese aggressiveness and Chinese assertiveness. And a lot of other countries are facing the same. I mean, ask Philippines, ask Indonesia, ask Vietnam, and they will all say the same thing. The uncertainty of US foreign policy priorities, that again puts a question mark on how to handle the emerging issues on the global theater. And impact of a weakened EU due to COVID and Ukraine conflict. See, EU earlier was definitely not as powerful militarily as the US was, but economically it was a pretty strong entity and a voice for sovereignty, etc. But post-COVID and then Ukraine conflict, EU is under pressure. It's weakened both economically. Its inadequate defense capabilities are emerging, and EU perhaps does not have the same salience globally as it earlier used to enjoy. So these are the challenges that you see on the international theater, and it is these challenges that we have to factor in when we craft our foreign policy. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, so come back to the last one. Last slide, please. Previous slide. One more. Yeah, come to global context. So what's the global context? I've told you the challenges. The larger global context is that the number one power, the global power, is facing a serious challenge from the number two, which is China. It does not help that the number two is showing aggression. Historically, such periods are very turbulent and unpredictable. And there can be serious risks of miscalculations. If you look at the history of the world, it's replete with instances when serious miscalculations have taken place. And the important aspect of this global context is India's salience is growing, but so will complexities in dealing with US and China. And you can see this happening both during Biden and now we'll see when the Trump regime comes, and with China, we are familiar with the kind of complexities that we are dealing with. Next slide. So what I'll do is or maybe let me take a pause here. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? No? Okay. So then...
Excuse me, sir. I had one doubt.
Yes, please.
So when we say that EU is weakening because of the Ukraine conflict, can we also say at the same time NATO is being strengthened by the growing cohesion between the European countries to ensure their security?
Look, I don't think, as things stand today, European countries have the capacity. They have, eventually they can. I mean, they have a lot of defense manufacturing capabilities. French make extraordinary fighter aircrafts, and Brits make it. Germans make superb tanks, and etc., etc. But collectively, in terms of interoperability, in terms of doctrine, in terms of reach, in terms of bench strength, Europeans haven't invested so much in defense. And that's been a main complaint of Donald Trump. That, we keep putting money and you guys just sit and enjoy. And you must pay for your security. So that's the challenge that Europe faces today. Secondly, within EU, you can see that there are discordant noises. Some of the countries don't want to have a confrontationist approach towards Russia. Some of them stood up and said so. So EU is not in a position today to impact substantially the outcomes in favor of Ukraine. That only US can do. Because technology, its satellite imagery, its intelligence gathering capacity, we put the whole thing together. EU still lacks that. They have both the financial means if they want to, but they'll require time to supplant NATO. Whether they may like to do that or not, or whether America would let them do that or not, is another question. So that's the answer to your question. If there are no other questions, let me start with relations with. I'll start with the relations with some countries. Maybe I'll end with 2 or 3, and then we can take questions and then we can move to the next ones. So relations with the US, and this is India-US relations. They are broad-based, multi-sectoral. You can actually think of pretty much everything that today is happening. We have some consultative groups, some joint working groups, some discussion, some work going on with US. So the relationship is very, very broad-based, which covers trade, investments, defense, technology, energy, cybersecurity, high-tech, rare minerals, civil nuclear, space, emerging technologies, cyber, you name it, we are working with the US. PM Modi has personally invested enormously in this relationship because this is perhaps the most important relationship that we have today. In the last 4 years, he has met President Biden 9 times. That itself shows the importance that not just India, but both countries attached to this relationship. We have entered into what we call the global strategic partnership. Previous US presidents have said this is the defining relationship of this century, and this is Obama who had said so. and so on and so forth. So there is a growing relationship, and it's also a very significant one, not just for India, not just also for US, but I think it will have global impact as it gathers more momentum. The US is also emerging as an important defense partner. Some of the most modern armaments they are giving us, and more perhaps would come as we go along. ICT is a very important initiative, unimaginable a few years back, that we'll be talking of a whole host of very, very futuristic technologies in terms of collaborative. The fact that we are setting up a semiconductor facility here geared for defense, and which will be used by both India and US, with semiconductors made in India. I mean, that's something very, very important and significant. So whole set of arrangements have been put in place. You're familiar with some of the agreements, the LEMOA and the earlier ones, and now the recent ones, which would enable both countries to act in tandem when it comes to defense challenges. The 2+2 dialogue, where the defense ministers and foreign ministers of India and US meet, is a very important dialogue. Joint naval exercises, increasing defense purchases. I mean, we are purchasing like roughly, I think, about $15–20 billion worth of defense equipment from US every year. The G engines, it hasn't yet fully fructified, but that's in part because G has some problems, and it is taking a little longer than what was expected. India-US advanced domains defense dialogue. As I said, we are talking of futuristic things also. India-US defense acceleration ecosystem, the Index X talks, etc. So the relationship is strengthening, gathering momentum. It's very broad-based. Bilateral trade in goods is up from about $20 billion in 2000 to over $120 billion in 2023. If you add trade in services, it's about $190 billion. So it's a very large amount. But we are looking at much bigger sums because the potential is there. And with China +1 strategy of both US government and US major companies, it's now up to us to take the ball and run. And I think we have to, whatever we need to do internally and domestically, I think we are doing, and we perhaps have to accelerate. So more than others, we benefit from this China +1. And in some cases, we are the only ones who could be a good alternative. And I think the iPhone manufacturing in India is a very clear example of what could happen. I mean, from exporting very little, in 3 years from now, 25% of iPhones production, global production, would come out of India, including the latest telephones and now iPods and whatever else. So that shows how fast it can be ramped up, should there be a will and supporting environment. Growing influence of the 3.5 million diaspora in the US, including the government, and some of them will become part of Trump 2, including director of FBI and a couple of other very senior appointments where Indians will be, and we still have to see the full cabinet. Who knows, some others may also join. So that's the broad framework of the India-US relationship. Next slide, please. So now, since 4 years of Biden 4 are over, or almost over, another less than a month, he'll retire. It will be a useful time to take stock of how things moved. So overall, a very significant progress, major boost to defense cooperation, great focus on new and emerging technologies. Again, ICT was under Biden. Kanun issue a stress point. very clearly. However, unlike Canada, which went to the town and made all kinds of accusations publicly and at times without any basis in fact, the US side, having raised the issue, are dealing with it far more carefully, simply put. India's relations with Russia and position in Ukraine did not cause much stress. It did, but did not cause much stress. But both sides have been able to broadly manage it. And I think that's how dialogue needs to be carried out between two very major countries and serious countries. There would be differences of view. US pursues its interests, we pursue our interests. And the smart thing is to find convergences and build on those and ring fence disagreements or where we don't share the same position. But it's important to explain to the other side why you are doing what you are doing. And you expect the same from the other side, because then they understand that you have your own imperatives. And hence you cannot just take a position like US would take on some issues. And the other would also be true. US would not take positions on some of the countries like, for example, China or Pakistan, just because India would want them to take certain positions. US has its relations and interests with China. They have their relations and interests with Pakistan. And perhaps it may not be to our satisfaction, but we accept that. And likewise, we would expect the US also to understand the same things, that there will be on some issues where there may not be full convergence. But at least we should be able to talk to each other, not talk at each other, and explain. And so that they understand as much as we understand, and then we see how we can narrow these. It would appear that the US did try pardon this typographic indulgence in outcomes to influence outcomes, influence outcomes in Indian elections. At least some observers have mentioned this in the last elections, or at least some parts of the US system wanted to influence the outcomes in elections. It hasn't really worked, but that's a matter of concern. And last year also saw US evangelism on human rights, religious freedoms, etc., which they do, but perhaps last year they were a little more trenchant. So now it could be because of their frustration, that they are showing their frustration with us vis-a-vis our relations with Russia, or it could be other factors. But there so the picture of Biden era relationship is rather good, but it does also have some spots on it, and I mentioned those. And it's important to take cognizance of what would have happened, as also what should not have happened, or what perhaps US could have handled things differently. Next slide, please. Trump, to what to expect. So you see, I think the most important thing is to understand Donald Trump and generally how he operates. And he likes to put psychological pressure on friends and foes alike. He's been like that. He has called off Mexico, he has called off Canada, he has called off NATO, he has said walk out of NATO. That's how he operates, and he generally wants to, that's how he works. Put psychological pressure on others so you get better concessions and you're able to influence them more. That's how it works. You don't understand that when dealing with it. He doesn't like wars, so it seems. He's very transactional. Everything is a deal, as he's written a book also on the art of the deal. So he thinks everything is a deal. Some things cannot be transactional because they are long term, and you play for the long game rather than just a 4-year scenario. But that's how he deals with it. And so we'll have to, like the rest of the world, we'll have to learn to deal with it, or relearn to deal with it. he is more focused on economic advantage to the US rather than long-term strategic objectives. And at times they can diverge. He has already finalized key team members. Many are hardliners on China. Most are generally well disposed towards India. Some not so, but the key guys are well disposed towards India. We know them, we have dealt with them, so it's relatively easy to pick up the threads and move on. The fact that there are many hardliners on China gives us that larger window, because it shows the direction where his relationship with China may go. I'm not saying would go, but may go. His initial preoccupation likely to be domestic agenda, because elections in US or anywhere else are won on domestic agenda. Mainly not foreign policy agendas. They don't really win you elections. So his preoccupations will be domestic agenda, particularly illegal immigrants. He has made a big case out of it. Inflation, US is reeling with the high inflation. Americans are not used to high inflation for almost 2 decades, and now they are actually feeling it, the pinch of high inflation, and bring back conservative values. He doesn't like same-sex marriages and things like those. No? So he wants to bring back conservative values. And so a lot of his focus will go, at least for the initial part, in start implementing his domestic agenda. That's why he's been elected. That's why people voted for him. So short point is that he may not have huge bandwidth left to focus on relations with India. Some of the larger countries will get his attention. Ukraine will get his attention. The Middle East will get his attention, because wars are going on there. And as he says, he'll stop the war in 1 day. So he'll have to spend his energies there. So we won't be on his radar screen front and center, which is not a bad thing. On trade, he's likely to push for balanced bilateral trade and use tariffs to secure it, but this is not going to happen. The fact of the matter is that US's trade deficit is over $1 trillion. $1 trillion. So you can't just wish away $1 trillion. And how do you do? What do you do? Stop importing, but you don't make those things. If you need those things, don't make them. What are you going to do? Import them. Now, if you add high tariffs to it, you're only further fueling inflation in your country. Because if you put another, say, as he says, put 60% taxes, so all the things that come from China, and China is the biggest trading partner of US, will become 60% more expensive. Now that will only add to inflation and misery of people in America. But as I said, you have to understand he likes bluff, he likes bluster, he wants to put that psychological pressure on friends and foes so that he gets a better deal. So we'll see where it goes. We have a trade surplus of about $30–40 billion with US. I mean, we are not among the top 10. We are maybe the 10th country in terms of trade surplus with US. We're not among the first 8, 9. So his focus will have to be there. We have some safety valves. We can import more energy from US because in any case we import 85% of oil and gas. So might as well buy from America, maybe a little more expensive. So we will figure out ways of dealing with it. And then maybe we might even go for a trade pact, a small trade investment pact. So some of the things on which he likes duties to be reduced, we could do that. I think we have a good measure of him, good relations with his key players. So hopefully we would do far better than most countries would do with US. And the fact of the matter is that in dealing with China, they would require India sooner or later. It's just a matter of how they, whichever way the seat is important. So that's broadly what to expect. Rest, as I said, we'll see when the chips are down, what happens. So anyway, that ends my thing on India-US relations. Any questions that you have? Anyone else? Yes, please.
Sir, regarding Trump's statements on de-dollarization of the BRICS currency, so should India be worried about that, the statement that Trump gave, or should we be relieved that it does not promote the Chinese currency to dominate as the common BRICS currency?
You know, so let's put it this way: there is no alternative currency right now, at least of BRICS. Building a currency requires enormous time and that mutual trust that is required. Okay, which, for example, Eurozone did, and they worked for 50 years. It started with US, European Coal Commission, and then other things were added, coal and steel, and then European Union took 30-40 years in making, and when they were part of NATO and all that. So here we have Russia, China, India, and now say few other countries in the BRICS. Brazil is a major player, rest aren't. So it's something which is not happening in the foreseeable future. So I think it's a threat, that's okay, but in any case, it's not something which is happening soon, anytime soon. So a common BRICS currency is still far off, if at all. He is only threatened it, knowing fully well it's not going to happen. Any other question?
Sir, good evening, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, there is a question that was asked in our Sankalp interview, that even though we have strategic relationship with United States, still we see United States making comments on our human rights track records and secularism. So should this be an issue, and how should India deal with this?
Look, it's very simple. As I said, you first thing you have to understand is, and this is very important in understanding foreign policy. We pursue our interests, they pursue their interests. It's not the job of US president to pursue India's interests, neither is the job of Indian Prime Minister to pursue US interests. The smart thing is to build convergences. The more convergences you build, the stronger the relationship becomes, and easier, and it makes it that much easy to deal with other issues where we don't see eye to eye, or where we have differences, or we don't have the same point of view. It could vary from one end to another end. Okay, some would be where we don't have full convergence, on some we have some differences, on some we have complete differences. Now, that's how it works. So what US uses, these are some of the soft power tools where you try and put pressure on us, okay, to accept something. Now it's up to us to accept the pressure, not to accept the pressure. So, and we have been, and if you see our position on what US says on our human rights or domestic freedoms of expression or religious freedoms, etc., our responses have been increasingly sharp. Earlier, we would just say, oh, it's not correct, it's biased, whatever. Now we are actually questioning them on this, and we are saying, you guys, we started pointing fingers. So we are playing the game the way they are playing. They want to put us on the defensive on some issues. We are trying to do the reciprocate the same. It's just simply saying we don't care about it. What you say is wrong. We don't care about it. You mind your business. We mind our business. So what has changed is US has been doing this on and off. So it's at times it's a little sharper, at times a little less. Our responses are becoming more robust and sharper. So that's the change I've seen. So it is a more self-confident India responding to these pinpricks from US. But as I said, try and look at a larger picture. And in US also, it's not, the policy is not monolithic. That all the various sectors will come together and will finalize a policy. On the defense side, the defense guys are far more friendly to us in the US than perhaps the State Department is. So you deal with, you perhaps deal more with national security advisor of US and the defense side, and use them as allies to soften some of the guys in the State Department or other parts of US, parts of US system who want to needle you on these issues. And then just brush your aside that we don't care about it, or that you don't point fingers because your hands are equally dirty. So that's how I'll put it. I hope I've answered the question.
Sir, but what exactly would be the motive of US pointing fingers
Look,
towards?
as I just mentioned, one, the whole system doesn't work in tandem, number one. Number two, they use it to soften you. Okay. Eventually, they are pursuing their interest, and they want to see how much they can pursue their interest with very little cost. Very little cost, and this is what we are doing. We also want to see what little we give to US and how much more we can get out of it. That's how we deal with it, and that's how they would deal with it. So they use it to soften us. We use other things to soften them.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, like I was saying, when the defense minister was recently in Rajnath Singh ji was recently in Moscow, he said our relationship is higher than the mountains and deeper than the seas. It was a signal to US that we have other alternatives, that we are not fully dependent upon them, or they can't hold us hostage.
Sir, I had a doubt. So when we say that India's responses have been becoming increasingly sharp, so is this an assertion from India's side to highlight at the global level that it is aware of its pivotal position right now in the geopolitics, and a sort of a symbol of India's multi-aligned strategy rather than being a junior player to any of the blocs in the global?
Absolutely. Again, that's why I'm saying, we are saying, look, if fine on defense, you don't want to give us something, or you think you want a higher price for it, not monetary price, but otherwise also higher political price. I think, well, we have other alternatives. They are using some of these pinpricks to temper you. We use some other ways. We deal with it in other ways of telling them that, look, that's okay. You don't like, you don't like. We'll do what we have to. You do what you have to. So earlier, this was not the case. Increasingly, it is becoming, our positions are becoming firmer, and we don't mince words on it in conveying so, which was not there earlier. So that's a more confident India dealing with the different actors. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, okay, Russia. So Russia is a time-tested partnership. Annual summit meetings, we have had 21. From what everyone reads, President Putin is likely to come to India soon. On defense, is very close relationship. A whole set of things: Russian tanks, aircraft, fighters, multi-role aircraft, helicopters, submarines, the whole range of ammunition, weapons, AK-203 manufacturing plant in India, so on and so forth, BrahMos. Now we are working together on a 5th generation fighter aircraft. So the whole range of issues, we are working with Russia. We understand Russia is right now under pressure because of its own defense requirements. So there have been some slippages. But that's should have happened, but then that's the reality. S-400 missile defense system again has got a little bit delayed because of Russia's own internal requirements. But it's a very, very reliable relationship on defense side, and I don't think it's going anywhere soon. It's going to continue for a while, and part of its substitution would come not mainly from other countries, but from domestic production. So increasingly, we are building our own domestic capabilities on the defense side. So you will see more joint manufacturing, joint development, and perhaps lots of things we'll do on our own. But it's a very important relationship, and Russia has been a very reliable partner. Bilateral trade is $65 billion, very large in relation to what it used to be during pre-Ukraine Russia war. So we'll see what happens. I think it won't come back to that level. It will still remain very high because West is not buying Russian oil. So West is not buying Russian oil, and we are the world's third largest oil market and second largest importer. So a lot of it will come from Russia. That's how it's going to happen. So it will bring some challenges, like what do you do with this huge trade imbalance? We imported $61 billion worth of goods from Russia last year. Bulk of it was oil, and we exported only $4 billion. So Russians are sitting on $57 billion of Indian currency or other things. So they're trying to figure out. I'm sure there'll be ways. We'll find solutions to these questions. As President Trump says, he's going to sort out the Ukraine war in one day or whatever time it takes, we'll see. Things might change. And at least the sanctions part, if they go away, that becomes that much easier for us to import Russian oil. Even if Europeans don't import large quantities of Russian oil, at least it will be available to us, and perhaps at more preferable terms. Now, the stress issues, one of course is Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, which has strained relations. I won't say strained, put stress relations with the West, and also because of Ukraine war, Russia needs China. So obviously that puts some stress on our relationship, but it hasn't really manifested itself. So Russia also handled it fairly well, and we have handled it fairly well. And now with some at least status quo ante being restored with China on to 2020, I think things should see some improvement, and that gives us more elbow room in terms of managing our different partners. And next slide, please. China. So 62 war shadow still remains, and now with what happened in 2020 hasn't really helped the relationship, and we can see it has put far greater stress on the relationship than earlier skirmishes. About 38,000 square kilometer territory occupied in J&K. China claims 90,000 square kilometers in eastern sector. Border is about 3,380 kilometers, a very long border. So historically, see, we overcame the 62 thing with Rajiv Gandhi's visit to China and began a new chapter. Idea then was that, okay, de-link the border issue with broader relationship, and that's how it progressed. Agreements of 93, 96, etc., etc. A lot of bonhomie also developed. But I think reality checks came repeatedly, both in Ladakh sector, occasionally in Arunachal sector, and also in Doklam, and then Doklam setback, then Wuhan rebooting 2020. Now October 2024 saw some semblance of at least taking care of what happened in 2020, but it's going to be a long time before the relationship can have any trust. It'll grow. It's in India's interest also, because a lot of our imports, our industries are dependent upon Chinese imports and Chinese machinery. And so if you completely freeze it, we are hurting ourselves more than perhaps we are hurting China. And so, it makes no sense in hurting yourself harder than hurting others. When the idea is to hurt them, not to hurt ourselves. So, but we wanted to use it as a point that, if you attack our territory, then there is a price to be paid. And that's not something which can be overlooked. So that part has been perhaps brought home. For the rest, relationship it'll move slowly. You really can't see a rapid transformation in this relationship. China supports Pakistan, it needles us in our region. You can see last few years tried to bring the Kashmir issue in the UN Security Council, the risk of diverting waters from shared rivers and so on. So a number of issues will remain open with China for us. So it'll more be managing the negative sides of the relationship and not allowing it to spin out of control. And if we have to attach a price to China, we have to see that we pay lesser price than what China pays. Otherwise, we're only hurting ourselves. So that's broadly where I see it going. It would be, of course, China also understands that it would be at its own peril if it pushes us into a very close embrace with the US on the defense and security and strategic side. Because we have a potent military, it has proven itself time and again, and we have a growing both defense industry as well as industrial strength and economic strength. So it'll require delicate handling, it'll seize ups and downs, minor ones hopefully, and they'll continue to do their pinpricks. I suppose we'll have to find ways of pinpricking them. I'm sure we do some, but perhaps we'll have to increase those. So that's how it's going to work. So I'll stop at that now. Any questions on relations with Russia and China?
Sir, I have one question to ask, can I?
Yes, please.
So I want to ask, what if they try to trap us in questions from China, because with the China we have complex relationship. So whether is it possible that they can ask about the 1962 war, or they can ask from India's point of view whether that India's foreign policy with respect to China has been good, or how we did it in the past and what should the future goes. So what about the past scenario, sir? Whether we should comment that it was a mistake or we did some flaws, there were flaws in the policy. So
look, indeed there were flaws, and no point of our trying to say we did not make mistakes. Because if you don't want to repeat your mistakes, first thing is to recognize that you made mistakes. So, and they all understand 62 war. They've been through it. You guys haven't yet. They were all alive when 62 war happened. You weren't. So, so that's where it is. And you must mention, that's why I started with saying 62 war shadow still remains. And you can say the same thing. See, whether we should have been so trusting or not, now it's all done. Only thing you can do is learn lessons. See, till you can't go and bring back what was before 62, till then you can only learn lessons. The first lesson, don't make the same mistakes. Don't be trusting towards anyone. And that's important in foreign policy. See, there are two things very important. One is, US will pursue the interest, Russia will pursue the interest, China will pursue the interest. That's the only belief they have. We don't have to be any different. It's not our job. It's not my job as a foreign service officer. It was not my job to promote other countries. I would promote relations with other countries purely because it suited me. It served my interests. I represent India. I look after India's interests. Other guy looks after his interests. The smart thing is to build convergences where both benefit from that relationship. That's the only sustainable and enduring basis. Number one. So But we were trusting, it was idealism, call it what you want. Now we have shared all that. We are also becoming increasingly very clear-headed about it, and we're dealing with it like that. You may not say so. That's important. You do those things, but you don't have to say so. You still say you want global good, you want everything. It's important to say so. But that doesn't mean you forget about your interests. And that's what America does, that's what others do, and that's what we should be doing, and that's what we are now doing. Now, so to answer your question, where would the relation with China go in the future? I think one of the lessons of 2020 is that we are now prepared to rough it out strongly. We put 50,000 soldiers in a very small piece of land. Half of it is ice, so snowbound. And we did it in no time. And we sustained for 4 years. So we've shown that gumption that we have the ability, both the physical ability and the mental strength to deal with it. And that's important. And that's what is expected. Now they understand that needling India will come at a price. And then we disrupted. We put a lot of stress on their economy in that sense. Stop buying this, that. So they understand it won't happen just like that. It will come with a price. And as long as they realize that the price will be higher than what they benefit, then they will not do those things. That's what you drive home to others. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Oh, welcome. So China we have done.
Sir,
anything on Russia, China, and then we can move on.
Sir, I have one question.
No, I want to see your face. Please put your video on. As much as you wouldn't like me, you won't want to see a blank screen when I'm answering you. Extend the same courtesy, yeah.
Sir, my question is, sir, may I speak?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, my question is, should India revisit the acceptance of one China policy if China continue to be aggressor on the border?
But look, so for a while now, India is not talking about one China policy publicly. Earlier, in each of our discussions, agreements, it will come out, India reiterated this one China policy, whatever. Now we are not doing it.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So we have already shifted a little bit, and that's a significant change.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Next slide, please. If there's no more questions, there are no more questions.
Sir,
Next
I
slide.
had one question.
Okay, please go ahead.
Sir, the recent disengagement and de-escalation agreement with China, how firm can we say it is, and that in future China will not assert or be aggressive on the border? And can we say, sir, this is kind of a softening of stance on part of China for maybe some economic reasons that its economy is slowing down and there can be possible tariff wars with the US? Is that the reason, or what is China's view regarding this? There is a lot of secrecy around. There's not much clarity on the agreement.
As I said right in the beginning, if you remember my second slide, I said there's a lot of ambiguity and complexity in why people do what they do. Okay, so you can only guess it. I think they realized it was becoming counterproductive. They didn't want to convert an emerging power, an important emerging power, into a permanent enemy. It made no sense to that. Okay, and they realized that, look, we will hold our ground, and even if it means putting 50,000 people just in Ladakh, sitting at 18,000 feet, 6 to 8 months, they are completely cut off from anybody else, but we still have the capacity to do it. And I think it was an important signal that you sent.
And are we going to play Tibet or Taiwan card also, sir, going ahead, given the softening of relationship, or are we
Look, you
going
know, when you talk of Taiwan card, I mean, if you mean that we'll recognize Taiwan as a separate state, Taiwan doesn't call itself as a separate state. Okay, so you can't recognize them if they are not even calling themselves separate state. Number one. Number two, we are increasing our relationship with Taiwan very quickly, and in some very interesting sectors like semiconductors. The Taiwanese companies would come and they are partnering with us on the semiconductor side, with the Tata's agreement, for example, one of them, which is Taiwanese companies, Foxconn. The other one has been bought over by Bristol, has been bought over by Tata's. But Foxconn is one of the major manufacturers of cell phones in India, and they manufacture for Apple in substantial quantities. So this is happening across two sectors, but there will be a number of other sectors where we will be working together. So the way we are building our relationship with Taiwan, in terms of trade, opening offices here, there, engagements, it's very clear what direction it is taking. Is not that Chinese are not seeing it. They're seeing it. But whether we recognize them as a separate state, first they have to call themselves separate state. We can't recognize them what they don't want. You know?
Yes, sir, but we are engaging more with Taiwan.
Very close,
so that,
very close. It's visible.
yeah.
I mean, you can see it in the newspapers every day. So it's not even hidden. At least a lot of it is public. Some may be hidden, but a lot of it is public. So it's already happening, and it's not that it's not going. China is not noticing. Ultimately, if in 3 years from today we'll be manufacturing 25% of Apple's global production, who's being hit? China.
Yes.
Bulk of it will shoot out of China. Yeah. So they understand this, and this is not the only thing that will happen. Others will also follow. So they understand it, and then they'll deal with it accordingly. Okay, next slide, please.
Sir, can I also had a doubt.
I beg your pardon.
Sir, I also had a question
Please,
on
please go
Russia,
ahead.
China.
Please go
So I
ahead.
wanted to ask, how should we answer if they are going to ask us about the growing proximity between Russia and China? They are becoming more and more closer to each other in terms of economic and defense. Also, our relations with China, Russia has changed. Like it was much closer during the Cold War or the 1970s, 80s. But now we are more closer to the West. We are only kind of, in terms of defense, we are now more dependent on Russia. And so how is that going to impact India-Russia relation, the growing proximity between China and Russia?
You see, China and Russia share a very long border. Okay? And they fought a war. If you remember the Usuri River fighting in the 60s, they fought a war on the border. They hated each other for a very long period of time. Okay? It's only the recent circumstances that have brought them together. If Russia has to fear anybody, they fear China more than they even fear the West. Because on the eastern part of Russia, which is the entire Siberia belt, it's very sparsely populated. It's very easy for Chinese at someday to walk in. And China needs both land and resources. So if Russia has any worries from China, not from India, our borders don't touch each other. And historically, we've never fought a war. We've always been on very good terms. And so this geographical angle is not changing. That's an important part. Secondly, the Russia's underbelly, which is the Central Asian republics. They share border with China. And the China is laying pipelines, roads, now railways, everything. We are not doing anything yet, for whatever reasons. One, we don't have access to begin with. So if Russia has to worry, they have to worry about China. Understand one thing which is very important, and each time you answer questions, or at least each time you judge things, very important. Don't give too much focus on any country's intentions. Just focus on their capabilities. You see, intentions can change very quickly. capabilities cannot be changed quickly. So you're dealing with capabilities of countries around you, away from you, etc. Intentions you factor in, but capability is what you worry about. Just to give you an example, US spends more money on defense than the next 15 countries put together, including Russia, China, India, Saudi Arabia, or Germany, France put together. That's how they do. Their defense expenditure is more than the next 10 countries put together. They are dealing with capabilities, not with intentions. So we have to deal with capabilities first. Russia is capable, you deal with them. China has capabilities, you deal with them. Intentions with Russia, we don't see it changing right now. I mean, in the foreseeable future, one doesn't see it change because there's no clash. There are no issues where we can clash. So chances are it will not happen. With China, yes, we share a long border, unsettled border, and they're needing us. So it's different. Now, whether Russia, China will come together against us, I don't see the likelihood of this happening until we move completely in the Western camp. Because then they are seeing you as not as India, but as a close ally or a military partner of US or the West, or a West led by US. Then it becomes different. But until then, there's no reason why we have made, in this whole Ukraine conflict, we have made very clear that we have weighed on the side of Russia. So we have not condemned them, we have not passed statements against them, etc., etc. And it's not something that they will not understand and recognize. So Russia, China coming together against India is a very low likelihood. Russia, China getting into spat someday, who knows? If Russia feels threatened with China, then who knows? And that could happen. Okay, have I answered the question?
Excuse me, sir. I also had a question.
Yep.
So this was a question that was asked in a Sankalp mock, actually today itself. So I was attending a mock session.
So you already have the answer. No?
No, I don't have the answer.
Okay.
It was like a group mock session. So the questions were asked to some other candidate. We were just like the participants or somebody who was viewing this. So the question was that considering China's policy in South China Sea, what should be the India's stand or the stance that India should like have considering all this that China is doing in the South China Sea? This was kind of an unrelated or a very difficult kind of question.
So it's very simple. On South China Sea, International Court of Justice has given its verdict, which went in favor of. So the dispute was between Philippines and China. Okay, there are ones who have gone there, and the verdict was in favor of Philippines. China has rejected it or doesn't care about it. That's where it is. What we are saying is rule-based. When we say rule-based, this is what we are saying. It has to be rule-based, number one. Number two, it has to be open for trade, transit, everything. That's where it is. Beyond that, we don't have any capacity right now in South China Sea. So you must pick your battles. You don't have to unnecessarily enter into every battle, because if the regional countries are not prepared to stand up now, slowly you can see they are, slowly, okay? Slowly. But they have to stand up first. You see, you can't go and fight their fight. You follow what I'm saying? So a position is very clear, which I understand that you are opposed to what they are doing. You are sending your warship there, you are doing military exercises with other countries, you are selling BrahMos to Philippines and Vietnam. So they understand what you are doing. But you don't have to unnecessarily pronounce on things or take forward positions where your stakes are very limited.
Sir, I also have another question, although it's like little bit unrelated. So a few days back, there was this editorial article in the Hindu. So I have this newspaper right here. It was written by Sudhendra Kulkarni ji. So in here, he describes that considering that India and China now they have signed an agreement regarding escalation over the border issues. So he's proposing that now India should improve its relations with China to the extent that they should engage in economic interest much more, and India should unban whatever apps that it had banned in 2020 and after that. So he's proposing we should have a very good relationships with China, and that will help us, both of us, in the future. So how feasible that is?
Look, so first of all, I don't see them in the board, in the board ever asking you a question in an editorial by an individual. Okay? I mean, I know Sudhin well. We were together in Bajpayee Saab's government in PMO, so we traveled, known him for 25 years now, more than that. But nobody's in the interview board going to ask you, Sudhin Kulkarni, so what do you say? This is view, he can give his view. They may ask you general question.
No, sir, but I'm
number one.
asking the... Yes.
Number two. As I said, you want to show to China that you are not happy with what they have done. So while reducing tensions at the border was our first demand, which has now been met, and we have said it's now issues, that part of issues resolved. Border has not been settled, but that part of issue has been resolved. But that doesn't mean everything is hunky-dory in the relationship. Number one. Number two, when it talks of economic relationship, well, it's completely to the advantage of China. They enjoy a trade surplus of between $80 to $100 billion with us. So what more does Sudhin want? We buy more from China. We keep buying more from China.
He actually says that China and India both should consider that we both could be team players and become rising powers of Asia.
China is a power.
Yeah.
Okay, and we are rising power. Despite $80 billion trade deficit to China. So these are like motherhood and apple pie kind of things. They all sound very good. But you ask them, okay, what next? What is it that we could expect from China? Will they balance our trade? Will they start buying, or will they remove all the non-tariff barriers that they impose on us? Or will they say, okay, now we'll buy $50 billion worth of Indian stuff to balance the trade? Let China do that. Let Sudhin ask them to do those things. The rest is normal, common economic sense, which will happen. We put some filters, which I don't think will remove, which is like quality standards on toys and things like those. Are a number of other things, and we should not. Why should our people get shoddy goods, third-rate goods, when we can manufacture them better here? So that in any case will continue, and we are buying goods worth $100 billion from China. So what more does China want from us?
Sir, I had one question.
Okay.
So considering that we have developed the borders and we have ongoing development there, and considering that Trump is back in USA, so there is likelihood of a tariff war. So in this situation where China is trying to create a buffer for itself, so how are we benefiting disengaging at this point?
Disengaging with whom?
Disengaging the agreement border agreement that we have signed with China.
So you don't want the agreement? Is that the case that you're proposing?
Sir, but shouldn't it be much more transactional wherein we involve some...
This is transactional, no? There was heat on the border. We have taken the heat away from that part. That's it. It's a sensible thing. You can't have 50,000 soldiers sitting in minus 30-degree temperature for 6 months.
But sir, then wouldn't it be in China's favor? Like if tariff war happens, India would be flooded with their goods.
Just a minute. You are confusing. We are talking first the border. So on border, do you find anything wrong in what you've done?
So that is fine. But
एक मिनट. So एक एक करके ना वो तो हो गया ना. So don't bring it into the equation. That part is done. Any case is done, but that part you agree that should have been done.
yes.
Okay, we are done there. Now what next?
Sir, I'm saying now that the relations have they are much more better than before. So now, in case of a tariff war, wouldn't Chinese goods would be flooded in Indian markets again?
So how would they flood?
If
If you have proper customs control and vigilance on imports. You see, flooding is when they dump goods into your country. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now you have anti-dumping systems, anti-dumping duties, etc., which will bring to play. Okay. Secondly, just keep in mind that China exports goods worth about $800 billion to US.
Yes, sir.
You import about $100 billion. How much more can they sell you? इतना आपका डिमांड ही नहीं है ना. Our total foreign trade is, our total exports is about $600-700 billion. कितना और खरीद सकते हैं चाइना से? है ना? So theoretically, yes, some things could happen like steel, etc. But we already started putting quotas. We started putting anti-dumping duties, etc. So we are doing that. Where we think that it will be China would dump products in India.
And sir, isn't it here the China like it's in their control that whenever they want they break the agreements, and now since the situation is not is going out of their hands a bit, so now they have engaged.
Look, you can't change people. Okay, so let me just put it. Suppose a neighbor is a nasty guy. What do? You can't change him. So there are two ways. One, you have a dialogue to make sure he's not nasty to you. And number two, if he's nasty to you, find ways of hitting back. To make him see reason and sense. This is what we are doing. We had a ground in Galwan. We proved a point that we can sustain 50,000 deployment for whatever time it requires. And we're prepared to slug it and we're prepared to fight it out. That we proved. And there's a reason why China eventually saw reason. And the geopolitical factors, etc., everything put together. That's it. That's what we'll do. See, you can't change other people.
Yes,
the neighbor is nasty. You attach a penalty to it, you attach a price to the neighbor if he or she becomes nasty to you.
Okay, sir.
You can't change them.
Yes, sir.
So
Okay,
as an extension to
let's move to the next slide. Then now we'll take the rest of the questions after I finish some more. Okay, would that be better?
So I have one question in continuation to what she was asking. In case of potential trade war, like the one that happened during Trump one between China and Russia, China and US, if that trade war was to happen again, what would its impact be on India, and how should we be ready for it?
So what impact can it have?
So that is what I'm trying to ask. What potential impact would it have on us?
Look, that's what I'm trying to explain to you. That's what I've tried to explain to you. That what China exports to US is far, far more than what it does to India. So maybe they'll be able to dump $5-10 billion worth of goods more, if at all. That's all you can absorb. So you put anti-dumping duties, you put quantitative restrictions if required, you put qualitative restrictions where you don't clear the goods. सामान ठीक नहीं है, 6 महीने तक कंटेनर में बैठा पड़ा रखी उसको, अपने आप उठा के ले जाएंगे वापस. Quality ठीक नहीं. So you do that, no? That's what you'll do, and that's what we've been doing.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, if you allow, I have one question, sir. along LAC, we are seeing the dual usage villages also from China side, sir. What should be India's stand, or like how we need to deal with that, sir?
You know what they do on their side of the border is their business. Well, in any case, you can't do anything about it. What we do in our borders is our business, not theirs.
Okay, sir.
So they are doing it in part because in the last about maybe 10 years, we are trying to build our border infrastructure. Earlier, the policy was not to build very good infrastructure in the border to prevent Chinese from using that infrastructure if they attacked us. We changed this position about 10, 15 years back, 10, 12 years back. When former Foreign Secretary of ours, Sham Saran, a committee was made under him, and they made some extensive recommendations. And thereafter, we have gone whole hog in building that infrastructure. It's a very difficult terrain. I've seen the terrain for intelligence. Very, very difficult terrain. And we have done humongous work. Absolutely difficult conditions to build that infrastructure. That's increasing. Once you have completed that part and build very good infrastructure, you see the same happening on our side.
Okay, sir.
People don't go there because आएंगे कैसे, पहुंचेंगे कैसे, वापस कैसे आएं? अगर आपने पहुंचना और वापस आना आसान कर दिया, सड़कें हैं वहां पे, तो लोग स्कीइंग करने जाएंगे, घूमने जाएंगे, tourism होगा, everything will happen. Because our borders with China are far closer from our population centers than Chinese border is from their population centers. ठीक है ना? So
Yes.
for us, it's far easier to reach there.
Okay, sir.
And to inhabit those places. But that's something which will happen in due course. But it's bound to happen. Once you have infrastructure, when there's a road, people will travel, there'll be hotels which will come up, there'll be small hamlets which will come up, eventually they'll get built.
Okay, sir.
And secondly, as by the nature of our society, you can't pick people and just simply say, you go stay there. हमने decide कर लिया, तुम वहां जाके रहोगे. हम नहीं कर सकते ना वो. और करना भी नहीं चाहिए. We should be doing this. We can't do it, and we should be doing this. So should we move to the next slide?
Thank you, sir.
So COP29, this was, so now it's become an annual jamboree. So in a sense, it also loses some of the salience and importance because हर साल मिलते हैं, वही बात करते हैं. And the important thing was that the developing countries wanted $1.3 trillion from 2035 onwards every year for what they call mitigation and adaptation, etc. To new technology, mitigation from impact, etc. What has been committed is about $300 billion. And the others, they say, we'll baat karenge aur dekhenge kaise aage karna hai. So maybe it will come next year or whenever they come. So they will sit and they'll talk. And obviously, the developed countries will not take this onus on themselves to give $1.3 trillion. So they will say, take it from World Bank on loan, or take it from other multilateral funding agencies, or take it from private, whatever. They will do that. They'll try and postpone it. And the developed world will continue to press on this. So this is how it has panned out. The last at the Dubai COP, which is the COP28, they had agreed to phase out what they call transitioning away from fossil fuels in a just, equitable, and orderly manner. This is what was agreed. Details were not worked out. This time, this was not even acknowledged. In part because Trump was already elected, so they knew he's all for big oil industries. He wants to pump as much oil out as possible because that's far easier for US. So that's where it is. So this was a setback. So overall, the developing countries were quite disappointed. They showed their disappointment. Not that it counts so much. So these are broadly what I have summarized for you. The rest you can, if you wish, you can read any commentary on this, but broadly I've summed this up for you. So a lot of actions required to reach net zero by 2050. Next year onwards, countries will start presenting their reports of what they've done so far. Some of them have done a lot of work, others have not so much. And then pressure will mount as we go along. So these are things where increasing pressure has to be mounted on developed countries, one part, so that they pay their fair share of this, because they are the ones who caused this problem, not us. If you look at the per capita emissions, it's just far higher in developed countries than in developing countries. So they must pay for it, and historically also, so they must pay for it. So that's where it is on COP29. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so Gulf and Middle East region, this is very important for us. It's as a grouping, it is the single largest trading partner of India. We get about half of our oil imports and about 85% of our gas from there. Not recently, because right now we're buying a lot of Russian oil. So, but if you look at the long-term trend, this is how it has been, and it's very geographically very proximate to us. So the advantages. A lot of our refineries are built on Middle East crude. So it becomes much easier to use that crude than getting something from Russia. And then you have to make adaptations and changes to refining systems. It is home to over 8 million Indians. Largest source of remittances, inward remittances of about $50 billion. Not individual countries, but in individual countries, UAE is number 2, US is number 1. But overall, it's about $50 billion. And because each of them sits on huge surpluses, there's a huge potential for investments from those countries into India. Political relationships are very good. They have transformed in the last 10 years. And this is perhaps one of the less transformed things that we're talking about. It's so much transformed in the last 10 years. It's unbelievable. PM has received the highest national awards of perhaps, I think, all the Gulf countries. Kuwait was the last one which he got recently, I think, from all the Gulf countries. But the relationship has become one of not just exporting labor and buying oil, but actually one of strategic convergence. Increasingly, the Gulf countries understand that because of India's huge interest in the Gulf countries, remittances, people, employment, trade, a whole host of things. This is a very, very important relationship, and they are paying as much attention to it as we are doing. So I think this is a great, great transformation in the last 10 years in our relationships. And you will see increasingly large remittances, large investments coming into India. I know some cases, but because they don't want it to diverge. But since I've served in other countries, the relationships are really transformed. And you'll see it only blooming further as we go along, with very positive consequences for us. Also for them, but very positive consequences for us. So it's something we can feel very happy and proud of. Within the Gulf region, Middle East they have their own internal discords, and they will keep quibbling at times, fighting about it. What you see right now in Gaza or Lebanon, and now very quick collapse of Syria, are some symptoms of what could happen. And the US will use Israel to put pressure on Iran further, eventually wean it away from Russia and China. That seems to be their strategy, and make sure that Iran does not become a nuclear weapon state. So those pressures will continue. Iran, notwithstanding what it says, is practical. So they will find solutions. They'll try and find reasonable solutions, and they've already indicated they're willing to sit and discuss. So we'll see where it goes. So for us, as I said, it's a great strategic importance. Relationship is great strategic importance. It will need constant attention. And we are, in a sense, accepted by all of them. So we enjoy good relations with all of them, regardless of their internal disputes. We enjoy good relations with all of them. So that's a good thing, and I'm sure we'll continue to maintain that. Next slide, please. So Pakistan, rest of things I just put on the slide if you wish. You are all familiar with it if you are prepared for interviews. Surgical strikes after Uri and Pulwama were important, again, in signaling that nothing is off the table for us in retaliation. So those self-imposed constraints that we have put on ourselves, we have loosened. I'm not saying we have thrown them away, but we have loosened them, and we have extended the ambit of to what extent we're prepared to go. Now, there's always a talk by some that we must have good relations, talks, etc. So it was the previous Pakistani government of Imran Khan, which took certain positions as a national position after abrogation of Article 370. Now Pakistan has to put it back. They have to say it's all behind now, let's move on. So it's up to them now to take that step, which doesn't, because the current government, again, hodgepodge government, and they're not sure of their footing. So we'll see where it goes. So basically with Pakistan, I think it's more management of relationship. At this stage, peace looks elusive, and China will try its best that there's no peace between India and Pakistan, so they will keep supporting Pakistan, giving it encouragement, financial support, etc., weapons, technology, so that we have this problem of two powerful enemies on our neighbor as our neighbors. And that, of course, puts stress on us, on our defense, on our resources. But that's what I think China would do. I really don't foresee in the immediate anything changing with Pakistan. At least that's my sense of it. Next slide, please. That will reach neighbors, and then we can take questions. Sri Lanka, again, is a very old historical relationship from time of Ashoka, Buddhism, everything. Very broad base. We have the major trading partner. Large number of Indian companies are there. Some of the previous Sri Lankan governments had used China or allowed China to take a foothold in Sri Lanka at a huge cost to themselves. The new president, Dissanayike's visit to India seems to have gone off very well, at least from what one has read and one has heard. And he has very clearly stated that they will do nothing that will affect our security or other interests. So that's a good thing if he sticks to it. Sri Lanka is also realizing now, at least internally, some of them are, that all these very expensive loans that they took from China under the BRI are now albatrosses around their neck, and it's a very heavy price that they are paying. So they've already lost Hambantota port because they couldn't pay the interest and the capital. So I think they're also becoming a little wary of it, of China. But we'll see where it goes. And we have been generally helpful to Sri Lanka, even when they were not so helpful. We offered them about $4 or $5 billion when they were passing through very difficult times. And so I think they are seeing reason. It takes a little while, but then we always become a domestic football in our neighbors' So that's the nature of our neighbors. You can't change that. That's the reality. Stress issues are treatment of Tamils there. Hopefully, the Sanaik will be better. The China factor we already discussed, and fishermen's issue, which is only a print prick, but because it hogs headlines in newspapers, it looks like something very serious happened. They are caught, and then after a while they are handed back to us, and then they again go back, and they are caught, and they are handed back to us. It's almost like a game which is continuing. You can't stop the fishermen from fishing because there's a livelihood, there's a harsh reality in democracy. And so it's only management of this issue so that things don't go out of control on this particular issue, because it becomes a very emotive issue in Tamil Nadu. Next slide, please. Bangladesh. Now, this was a very good relationship till a few months back. After Bhutan, Bangladesh was emerging as a very, very an example of very good relationship. Overnight, things changed. So we still we have to wait and watch, because nobody seems to be firmly in control there. The Jamaat, BNP, hardliners, or the more radical elements, the students who are unhappy with the government and whom these institutions used, or when they created opening, they benefited from it. So it's still in flux, the deep flux. So right now things are bad, undoubtedly, and it becomes worse because they started trade with Pakistan. They started giving very easy visas to Pakistan, things like those, and which has security implications on us. So that's a challenge for us. Growing Chinese presence is again a cause of concern for us. So we'll see where it goes. But as I said, this is the initial period, so we have to weather the flux, and then we'll see where it stabilizes. But for sure, with the kind of current dispensation, we don't know when the elections will happen. They're talking in terms of end 2025 or a year and a half from now. We'll have to see what happens if the elections take place and what outcomes come out. But until then, we'll have to just rough it out. We'll have to be firm, we'll have to be resolute, and we'll have to take some flack and give back some flack if required. Next slide. Nepal, and then I think we'll end with our neighbors. So again, Nepal and Bhutan are two what we call the special treaty countries. Open borders, free movement of people between India and Nepal, and India and Bhutan. Huge potential for unharnessed hydropower, at least 80,000 megawatts, perhaps more. Intense civilizational links. People speak the same, more or less same language, same traditions. Huge linkages, deep engagement at every level. With the Nepalese, practically do everything there. We work with them on so many things, can't even name them. Many challenges as it deals with stabilizing this democracy, which has been a bit of a challenge because the only, I think, the national sport there is to bring the government down. So each time a government comes, they start preparing to bring it down. Internally, there's a divide between communists and non-communists, and also between Pahadis and Madhesis. So there are internal divergences also which come to play. And so we have seen this stress relationship for the last many years. We found ways of handling it. Oli has been particularly vicious, raising not just raising the Kalapani issue, but claiming about 345 kilometers of that area, which of course is under our control, and we have no desire to give it back. It's our land. And so now these all become emotive issues in Nepal. They feel we are being big brotherly, which we are not. But that's where it is. So stress issues, destabilized political situation, and you see the major parties, or three major parties, two are communists. The ruling UML right now is a communist party, and the Prachanda's party is a communist party. So often they find same patron, and often they find some convergences, and they bring a government together, then they pull it down, and then the Democrats join them, and then they bring them down. That's, I said, there's a national pastime there. For political survival, power is very important there. So it's basically just naked pursuit of political power, which is destabilizing Nepal. So I'll stop at this point, and now all the questions from on our neighborhood.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Looking into the current matter of Bangladesh, sir, the current issues going on, can you give us a broad view about how it can should be, and about the latest expatriation issue that is being discussed?
Well, latest, which issue?
The expatriation treaty, sir, which was signed, and they have requested
extradition treaty. So, I already mentioned about what's happening in Bangladesh. What's the specific question you have? Could you repeat that, please?
What should India's steps be towards the overall challenge that is going on in the country?
So you see, we are just so what we have done is we have conveyed. I understand during Foreign Secretary's visit, Vikram Misri's visit, we have conveyed to them our red lines. Okay, see, who rules Bangladesh is eventually for people of Bangladesh to decide, not for India to decide. So all we can convey to them is, look, this is not on, this is not acceptable, this will not work, this will have consequences. Okay, so that I suppose we have done that. Recently, the National Security Advisor of US, he also spoke to interim leader of interim leader of Bangladesh on the atrocities committed on Hindus, and so let's hope they will now see reason, and they apparently he has promised that all actions will be taken. As Yunus has promised, they'll take action, whatever. So we'll see where it happens. But the point is, coming from US, it carries greater weight and doesn't become a political issue there. Some allege that US was behind it, very difficult to prove. But the US as cozying up with this government perhaps indicates that they had a hand in that. We will see. And why they did it, we'll see what happens. But for the moment, we'll just have to rough it out. That's only. Now on the extradition treaty, they made a request. India has just simply said we have received the request. They have not said anything further. I do not think, my own sense would be, I don't think we will hand Sheikh Hasina to them. I don't think, this is my personal view, I don't think it'll happen. Because she has been a good friend, and if you let your friend down, nobody will want to become your friend. It's very simple.
Yes. Okay.
So that's where it is.
So I have one question to ask.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, can I?
Yeah, yes, please.
Yeah, so my question is, what if the interview panelists, they ask like why India is commenting upon the religious atrocities occurring in the Bangladesh, and whether we haven't learned the lessons from the Tamil Eelam issue?
No, so There are two things to it. One is commenting for two reasons, but most important, it has implications on you. Last time also in 71 also, a very large number of people, not all definitely, but a very large number of people who came from Bangladesh were Hindus. So if they start killing them, they come, where would they go? They'll come to India, right? So it has implications on both your security and people coming to different states, neighboring states. It changes the demographic there also. So we have interest. And if you remember, well, you were not born then, but in 71 war, we entered because we said it was affecting us. The 10 million refugees were having a serious impact on us. That was the reason why we intervened. So that's pretty much clear. It has implications on us. And if it has implications, then we will act. We can't just silently suffer. आप कुछ भी करें, ठीक है ना, अपने घर में, लेकिन अगर मेरे घर में चिंगारी आ रही तो मैं दखल तो करूंगा ना. I'll tell you, आप बंद कीजिए आग लगाना यहाँ पे, तो मेरा घर भी जलने का डर है. आप नहीं मानेंगे, then I'll enter your house if I can. This is exactly what happened in 71. So for us to, we're not interfering in the internal affairs. We are saying that what you're doing has implications on us. Or it could have implications on us, and this is wrong.
Right, sir. Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Sir, I had a doubt regarding the extradition treaty.
Yeah.
Like you said that there are very low chances of we handing over Sheikh Hasina, but she has been making a lot of comments through the video conferencing, which is making it difficult for India to become more neutral on this issue. So how can we deal with that?
No. So look, there's a freedom of speech. In our country, there's a freedom of speech. She can speak as long as she's not inciting violence. She's free to speak. Okay? That's what she's doing. Ultimately, if some of the people in the ruling dispensation of Bangladesh, saying that they will take Bangladesh, they'll take West Bengal, then they'll take Odisha, and they'll take Bihar or Assam or whatever else. That is actually affecting our sovereignty. They're saying this, no? Sheikh Hasina will say what has happened is wrong.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Sir, in case the panel asks us whether we should return back Sheikh Hasina or not, so how can we defend the view that we should not? Is there any legal aspect or international relation or international law kind of thing for that?
The extradition treaty, we have asked for extradition. A number of people from Bangladesh did give it to us, number one. Number two, we have asked for extradition of some of the people who flees our country, like Vijay Mallya. The British haven't is lying in the court, so it will continue. Secondly, the extradition treaty does not put any time frame within which you have to act. So when the request comes, right now we just simply said it's been received. Then we'll say it is being considered. How much time we take to consider that depends. That's up to us.
Okay, sir, I also had a doubt,
Yeah.
had a actually question. So how should we approach if we are asked that has India been failing in its neighborhood policy? Because we can see Bangladesh or Nepal. Nepal is also now, it's much more closer to China, given there is left party in power, I guess. Or again, in Bangladesh, we can see such incidents. So if we are asked that, is India failing in its neighborhood policy? So how should we approach it?
First of all, that presupposes that it's our job to run governments there. Okay?
Yes.
What governments they choose is their business. If they have a coup, it's their business. Okay? We didn't cause that coup. We didn't know.
No, sir.
So it's unfair to say that you failed in your neighborhood policy.
Yes.
You follow?
Yes,
So
yes.
in a way, it's like, आपका बच्चा fail हो जाए, आप खराब माँ बाप हैं. आपने कहा भी किताब दे दिया, स्कूल भेज दिया, ट्यूटर करा दिया, मैं और क्या कर सकता था बताइए? बच्चे की जगह जाके मैं तो एग्जाम नहीं दे सकता,
Okay.
है ना?
Yes.
So why should we even accept this? I think the only question that you must ask ourselves is whether we've been unfair or fair with our neighbors, and we've been more generous with them. We have put less demands on them, and we have given them far more. And I can tell you with utmost sincerity, I've been head of division dealing with Nepal, Bhutan as joint secretary, and I was under secretary dealing with the southern neighbors, which are Sri Lanka, Maldives, and Indian Ocean countries. Okay, so I've done neighborhood in that sense, and then in Prime Minister's office, you are doing everything. But I've done this directly. We have given them far more than that, what you have even asked them for.
Yes.
What we are asking for is just respect our red lines, which is don't with Nepal, Bhutan, since the open border, don't allow everybody to cross. So have tighter controls. Less cooperatively use your water resources, so you benefit, we benefit. That's about all. So we made no other demands on them. But what happens is we become a domestic football because they want to play politics within their country, branding one party as pro India to win elections. But we have not done that. So same thing, we have shown extreme generosity with our neighbors. Ultimately, we have a very large number of poor people in India who perhaps should have the first right on those resources, not people of other countries. Yet we have given a large, enormous amount of resources to our neighbors. So it's not that we have not done. And I think perhaps at times I feel that was the mistake, that we were over-generous to them. And so they actually started believing that we needed them more than they need us. And at times it's important to take a step back and clear this misperception that we really need them as much as they need us. They need us far more than we need them. I mean, 70% of Nepal's trade is with India. 90% of Bhutan's trade is with India. 1/3 or maybe more of Sri Lanka and Bangladesh's trade is with India. They are dependent upon us. We are not dependent upon them for anything. You stop sending your yarn, textile industry in Nepal, in Bangladesh will collapse tomorrow. So they'll have to find alternate sources, but you are the biggest manufacturer of cotton in the world. I'm just giving one example. Bulk of the fuel use, not bulk, entire fuel requirement of Nepal is met by us. Of course, they pay for it. You close the tap and they'll have no fuel. And so we've done a hell lot. Okay, but that's the nature of things because we are so large, you can't reduce the size just because the neighbors don't like you. So they have to create Indian bogie for the domestic political benefits or for the settling scores or for winning brownie points. That's how it is. You just have to learn to live with it. Any other question?
Hello, sir. There is a perception in South Asia regarding India being a big brotherly state. So how far does that argument hold?
But when it's a big brotherly, what does it mean? So big brotherly is when we have demanded more of them than we have given them. You give me one example of it. One example.
Some news editorial says that there is a general perception.
Which editorial?
So in general, we also quoted in Main's answer that there is a perception of big brotherly attitude in the
That's
South.
what I'm asking. So let's deal with facts. This is opinion. This is not a fact. This is only opinion. It could be opinion of many people, but this is not fact. So let's deal with facts. How many scholarships we give? Do they give us any scholarship? Answer is no. How much of aid we give? Do they give us any aid? Answer is no. How much of preferential treatment we give to them? Do they give us any preferential treatment? Answer is no. All the Bhutanese and all the Nepalese can come and work in India. Until a few years back, until a few decades back, they could even get into IAS and IPS. Now no longer, and IFS. Now no longer. But theoretically, a Nepalese soldier can become army chief of India. Can an Indian become army chief of Nepal? Answer is no. So reality is this. But because, as I said, they have to play this game with us and put us under psychological pressure, The politicians will keep talking big brotherly, big brotherly, big brotherly. But give me one instance where we extracted anything out of that. Yeah, that this you'll have to give this to us, or we will take your water, or we'll take your hilsa fish, or whatever else you have, and you have to give it to us. Have you done that? Answer is no. So this perception is an artificial creation. I'm not saying we should not fight perception, but we must not start believing it. And that is the biggest mistake we'll commit, to start believing it as you are trying to believe. कि वो कह रहे हैं इससे सही होगा, which is not correct. And we must not start believing it and start flogging ourselves for it. Exactly like your kid goes to school, you do everything for the kid, he still fails, and start flogging yourself. कि मुझसे और गलती हो गई होगी. Answer is no.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
We are not in big brother. See, you have to let people give examples of that. That's when you're in big brother.
Sir, may I ask?
Yes, please.
Sir, actually, I want to understand the difference between three terms: disengagement, de-escalation, and de-induction.
See, disengagement is when you are engaged. Say we are neck to neck, cheek ball to cheek ball, eyeball to eyeball, and we say, okay, for distance कर देंगे. ठीक है ना? This is disengagement. De-induction is when you start pulling troops back, weapons, whatever. You'll bring those back to your bases, or bring in the interior areas. Okay, that's de-induction. What is the third thing you mentioned?
Sir, de-escalation.
De-escalation is, so I would say first step would be a decision to de-escalate. We will decide कि temperature को कम करना है, ठीक है ना? So we'll say, okay, rhetoric नहीं, शांति से बात करेंगे, that is de-escalation. Then we say disengage कर लेते हैं. अब दोनों का थोड़ा temperature ठंडा हो गया है, तो अब इसको disengage कर लेते हैं, which means bringing troops back, for example. If they were just like आमने सामने खड़े थे, अब उनको पीछे खींच लेते हैं. 10,000 खड़े थे, तो and then de-induction, when you start simply saying अब हो गया, सब शांति has restored, we worked out modalities, now we'll reduce the troops and de-induct them, and then bring them to your interiors. That's the difference. Okay?
Yes, sir. Sir, one more question. In the 1960s, we provided residence to the Tibet leader Dalai Lama, and now this time we are providing the residence to Sheikh Hasina, and both the instances have created rifts in our relation with India, China, and India, Bangladesh, respectively. Isn't it a utopian stand of India rather than being practical? We are taking much more hurdles on our hand.
Why are we taking much more hurdles on our hand with giving Sheikh Hasina stay in India, allowing her to stay in India? How are we doing it?
So, like,
so let me ask you a counter question. Who would trust you if you didn't stand by your friends?
So one alternative could be like we could provide a temporary stay, and then she could move to other country, and the same.
Again, somebody should be willing to accept her, no? Number one. Number two, what makes you feel that the game is over yet in Bangladesh?
And sir, China instance.
I'm asking a question. What makes you feel that the game is over in Bangladesh? See, Awami Party has a huge cadre base. They have been powerful for 15 years. There are a large number of supporters of Awami League in Bangladesh also. And when they realize, and people realize कि ये सब तो सरकार चला नहीं पा रहे हैं, खाली एक दूसरे को मार रहे हैं, खाली रोज ड्रामा कर रहे हैं, गाली गलौज कर रहे हैं इंडिया से, that will come back. But if Sheikh Hasina goes, ना वो रही आप, ये तो आपके बनेंगे नहीं, वो मुझसे भी जाएंगे आप, है ना? तो ना तो माया मिलेगी ना राम मिलेगा.
And sir, the China instance.
What is China instance?
Like we have provided shelter to the Dalai Lama, but this has become a thorn point between the relations of India and China.
So you actually believe that if you hand over, for example, Dalai Lama to China, things will become hunky-dory?
So we could...
Look, we have already accepted Tibet as the autonomous part of China. So what Dalai Lama only represents Tibet. Okay? Our problem with China is our territories, or what we claim to be our territories. There's nothing to do with Dalai Lama. Dalai Lama lives in India, but he doesn't indulge in politics.
Okay, thank you, sir.
देखिए, अगर आप दोस्तों से दोस्ती नहीं निभाएंगे तो कोई दोस्त नहीं बनेगा.
जी sir. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. I wanted to add to Gayatri's point itself, where she was asking that, like, Sheikh Hasina being in India, wouldn't that create a problem? So what I understand out of it is already there are allegations that, like the current whoever is ruling in Bangladesh and their supporters, they are making allegations that previously Sheikh Hasina was being supported by India, and India was meddling into the government uh, work that was going on in Bangladesh. So was their basic idea was that India was interfering into the internal politics of Bangladesh. So wouldn't this current scenario where we are not giving up on Sheikh Hasina uh, prove their point more correct, that whatever they were saying was right? If I'm able to explain.
First of all, first basic thing, having good relations doesn't mean you're interfering in other countries. If you have good relations with Sheikh Hasina, it was as much to Bangladesh's advantage, perhaps more to Bangladesh's advantage than to our advantage. Okay? So it was not really interfering. It would be a very wrong starting point to presume that neighbors should only have hostile relations. Sheikh Hasina did what she did because it was in Bangladesh's interest. We did what we did because it was in our interest, broadly, and that's how it worked. A new regime has come there, which has usurped power. They didn't win the election, they didn't contest the elections. They just use whoever supported them to come to power. Now they have to galvanize their country. So what do you say? You have to create some enemy. It's very easy to create India because Bangladesh only has two neighbors. One is India, another is Myanmar, which is only a small tract. So they have to create this bogey. India dakhal kar rahi thi, India ye kar rahi thi, India wo kar rahi thi. It's very easy to blame. Is there any evidence that anybody has given of our interference? Has any evidence? You have seen any evidence of our interference?
No evidence as such, but their
exactly.
media.
So there's no evidence. So if there's no evidence, anybody can make any acquisition. What's the big deal about it? So they are making those acquisitions for their political needs because they have thrown away Sheikh Hasina. So they have to now find faults with her. And the fault is कि वो तो इंडिया की स्टूज थी, ये थी, वो थी, इंडिया इंटरफेयर कर रहा था. वोट तो आपने डाले हुए, हमें थोड़ी जाके वोट डाले थे वहां. वोट तो बांग्लादेश ने डाले ना शेख हसीना के लिए. आप और मैं तो नहीं गए थे वोट डालने के लिए वहां पे. So why are you blaming us? But because they have to find some enemy. One is Sheikh Hasina, second is India. But that's how you galvanize your people. So let's not buy into this and let's not start flogging ourselves for this. वो कह रहे हैं इसलिए हम गलत होंगे. How are you going to run a policy if somebody accuses you, start believing actually something is wrong with you? You get the point?
Got it, sir. Got it.
So,
Also, sir, clearly, India is becoming a punching bag, according to you.
No, it has always been.
Yes, sir. So
it has always been because that's the easiest thing to do.
Yes, sir. So what should, if the question is, if you are an ambassador, what should you do to ensure that we do not, this perception is changed?
You cannot ensure. You cannot ensure in your own country. Your government is being hit every second day or every day by opposition. What can you do in your own country? You can't do anything in your own country. What are you going to do in some other country? Can you prevent your government in India of being accused of doing wrong, doing this, that? Every day you hear that. सरकार ने कर दिया, सरकार ने गलत कर दिया, ये कर दिया, वो कर दिया. रोज कहते हैं ना, क्या कर सकते हैं आप उसका? That's how democracies are. You just have to learn to live with it. Just because you start accusing me, I can't start self-flagellation. कि मुझे आप मुझसे नाराज है, मुझ में भी गलती होगी. I mean, it will be a very silly way of dealing with situations. They are doing because serve the interest. You trash it, you deal with it, you discard it. That's all. I'm not saying that diplomacy doesn't have a role or that our ambassadors don't do work to endear themselves. And let me give you a very simple example. You guys are not born, so you might only heard of it. When India was the biggest aid recipient of US in the world. Okay, and for a long time we were the biggest aid recipient of US. Was the time when the US was most criticized in India. The so-called foreign aid, this, that, सब कुछ America पे. Everything was wrong with America when they were the biggest aid givers to India. आज कुछ aid नहीं देते हैं, America is loved. That's the nature of politics. आपका wheat वहां से आता था. 62 में चाइना के खिलाफ weapons उन्होंने भेजे थे. They airship weapons. They give you information. They give you intelligence. They did so much for you. And all our governments successfully criticized them. Most, not all. Okay? आज वो आप तो कुछ अमेरिका से aid नहीं ले रहे हैं. You're buying whatever you buy. America is a very good country. So domestic politics.
Thank you, sir.
Left was very strong. Government needed left. That's how it was. Today it's not so. Today there's a different India. Left is very marginalized. आज फर्क नहीं पड़ता. बहुत दोस्ती अमेरिका के साथ. Same America. Anyways, next question. Let's just try and finish quickly.
Sir, can I? Sir, my question, sir, in continuation of this question, I would like to ask that should we have deal in perception management? Like, should we do perception management in different countries of India, like China?
What makes you feel is not being done?
Yes, sir.
What makes you feel is not being done?
So how can we done that perception management?
मैं तो आपसे कह रहा हूँ यार, आप अपने मुल्क में आप अगर अपने opposition को perception manage नहीं कर सकते, बाहर क्या करेंगे?
Yes.
That's a simple question I'm asking you. Doesn't your elected government gets pilloried every day by the opposition?
Yes.
Yes. Can you do something about it, even though you voted the government there? At least more Indians voted for the government than against them. नहीं कर पाते ना.
नहीं कर सकते.
बाहर कैसे कर लेंगे यार? Let's be realistic about it. It's in their interest. It's in their interest. The people who are opposing you to oppose you. It's not a question of whether you're right or wrong. They how to oppose you, they'll continue to oppose you, no matter what you do.
Sir, like US tech companies have to influence of perception management because of the social media influence which they are bombarding to the content to the people, general public. Should that be used as a tool for having that perception management in different countries?
What makes you feel we are not using it?
Yes, sir.
I'm asking a question, simple question. The government is using social media so actively, so regularly. Yet there's so much of criticism of the government in the country, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
कोई कर पाए manage? अमेरिका नहीं कर पाता.
Definitely.
ठीक है ना? If they were to manage so easily, no government would lose elections. जो अपने मुल्क में नहीं कर पाते, दूसरे मुल्क में कितना कर सकते हैं? We have to be very clear about it. फिर वो कहेंगे आप interfere कर रहे हैं. फिर some of you will simply say तो कह देंगे interfere कर रहे हैं आप.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So
we must understand this thing. Big powers will the more stronger you get, the more tension your neighbors will get at you. Okay, just ignore it.
the best way out should be to wait it out till favorable domestic governments are put in place.
Just keep doing the right things and that's it. बाकी होता है criticism, क्या करेंगे उसका?
Thank you, sir.
Sir, can I ask
So
a
can you
question?
add just points like building more good for people to people relation and doing the right thing? This would be the our way forward. Just having that good people to people relation and doing the good thing, doing the right way, building that long relations. That should be the way forward only.
No good or bad, just do the right thing. That's it. What serves your interest, keep doing. बाकी जो कहते रहेंगे कितना फर्क पड़ेगा उससे.
Sir, today a question was raised that should we see Maldives and Bangladesh or Nepal as potential enemies? Sir, how should we approach this?
Do you see them as potential enemies?
Sir, no, I don't see.
So you have the answer.
Sir, but how can we substantiate in a better manner?
No, but that they are not enemies, as simple as that. They are not enemies. You see, you have to understand this thing. There is an enmity in the country and enmity of a government. In Maldives, it was enmity of a government. उनको election जीतना था. He raised Indian bogie. He won the elections. After a year or so, he saw reason and he saw what was good for him. वही आए ना आपके पास तो आप वही तो आए थे आपके पास वही क्या कहेगा अच्छा संबंध में. So you have to play the game of patience. You don't understand उसको election जीतने उसने कर दिया जो करना था.
Okay, sir.
ठीक है ना. Now with Oli it's different. He caused a major damage to the relationship by publishing those maps, etc. India नहीं बुला रही उनको. He's desperate to come to India. We said no.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
But then these things are done quietly, you know. कभी ये थोड़ी क्या है. ठीक है ना. चलिए, let's move to the next slide.
Sir, I have a question, sir.
बताइए.
Yes, sir. Whether India should revive its relationship with Pakistan? If this question is posed, how to answer this?
Who spoiled the relationship, India or Pakistan?
Pakistan, sir.
Then why asking this question to India? You must ask this question to Pakistan.
Okay, sir.
है ना?
From our side, what like if they ask us specifically from our side, what can we do?
But why should I do? That's the point. संबंध आपने बिगाड़े हैं और जिम्मेदारी मेरी है ठीक करने की. उसको ये कैसे हो सकता है?
True, sir. Okay.
Right. It is Imran Khan who said that he is the one who recalled ambassador. He is the one who stopped trade. हम क्या करेंगे इसमें? So do you want to bring back Article 370 to please them?
No, sir.
तो फिर क्या करेंगे आप? So what responsibility do you take for doing this? You simply say, if you don't want to talk, don't talk. That's it.
Okay, sir.
या आपके आर्टिकल 370 वापस ले आएंगी पाकिस्तान को खुश करने के लिए?
No, sir. It's our domestic policy, sir.
उसकी डिमांड तो ये है ना?
Yes, sir.
And the subsequent Pakistan government has not changed that demand. They are making noises, but they have not yet changed the demand. They are the ones who pulled the ambassador back. Let them appoint him. They are the ones who stop trade. Let them open it. हम क्या करेंगे इसमें?
Okay.
Yeah, but why should we take it upon ourselves the responsibility for preventing other fools from their follies? ठीक है ना?
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Next slide, please.
So I have a question.
बाद में करेंगे question, ठीक है ना?
Okay.
चलिए, let's just finish the other slides and then we can take the rest of the questions. Next slide, please. So Africa, it's a continent of opportunities for us in every sense. We have a lot of presence there. We have good relations. Indians are broadly very liked there, respected. Most countries there is enough large Indian community. In some cases, very large Indian community, very influential also. In other cases, increasingly you find Indian businesses there. India has huge investments, at least $35 billion, perhaps more, because some of the investments go from other countries. So, so government is giving a lot of focus on Africa. There are 56 countries, so 57 now. So there's limitation, but now we have embassies in most of them also, permanent missions, Indian embassies. So that will only further lead. We were the ones who got Africa into African Union as a part of G20. So we have done a lot of right things. Now, there are a lot of challenges within Africa. The countries vary from country to country. Some are well governed, reasonably well governed, others aren't. So that's where it is. We will have to work our way through. But we have made a lot of headway. And I think I would sense that we will become increasingly important in the lives of other African countries as we move forward. So that will be a brief, short point on this. Next slide, please. The European Union, again, we already discussed this, the single largest economic union. It's an important source of technology, trade, investments for India. So in that sense, very important. So, and they have huge investments in India. More could be expected and should happen, as again they also follow the China +1 policy. With the EFTA countries, we had at this deal, they're going to invest about $100 billion in India, which is Switzerland, Luxembourg, and Iceland, and 3 other countries. So things are moving. Some of the European countries have this extreme focus on, again, interference in human rights, is lecturing and hectoring us, raising labor standards because they can't compete with our industry. वो सब चलता रहेगा. Broadly, relationship is a broad-based, good relationship, and they are understanding the importance of India in their scheme of things now. So I think going forward, there'll be some print breaks that are always there. That's how they try to needle you, and that's how they try to keep you off balance. But we just have to learn to live with it, and now retort and answer back, and just tell them exactly where they get off. For the rest, I think it should be a good relationship going forward. Next slide, please. So East Asia, again, China we already discussed. With the rest, we have good relations, very good relations. Buddhism is a binding factor with some of them, old links. With Japan now, we have very good relationship. With Korea, South Korea also, very good relationship. Vietnam, very strong relationship. The principal countries of East Asia, Australia, the member of Quad, so again, very good relationship and a growing relationship. So all told, things are working well with these countries. Our not joining RCEP was a setback for them also. But I think we did the right thing, because I don't think our industry or we were ready to open our markets basically to unbridled Chinese imports, which is what would have happened. So we will see going forward how we'll handle trade. If it's not done multilaterally, which means under WTO aegis, then we'll have to eventually maybe strike deals with some of them, and rewrite some of the deals like we had with ASEAN, which impacted adversely our electronics industry. So we'll have to, but broadly, political relationship is very good, and so is economic relationship is thriving. Korea, Japan are major investors in India. Australia could also become a very important trading partner. So that's about, we have this look-east policy, now it's becoming act-east policy. So just a way of focus, giving greater focus. Next slide, please. Quad, you're familiar with it. It was raised to summit level. Now we meet regularly. Very clearly, China is the concern for all of us in the Quad. Nobody talks of it directly, specifically, but what we are doing is very clear. We are, but there is still not enough coherence. We are reticent in getting to military groupings because it has its own implications. So right now it's more working together, having greater confidence in each other, interoperability, etc., through naval exercises, army exercises, air force exercises, things like those. But if China continues to grow and becomes aggressive as it goes forward, Quad will continue to have more salience. US has already formed another group, AUKUS, which is a more military grouping, which is okay for us because we're not particularly keen at this stage in becoming part of any military grouping. We'd rather keep our options open and which makes sense to us. So that's where it is. Next slide, please. Next slide. United Nations. Look at, we've been founding members. We have played we play an important role in the UN. I've served in a mission to UN in New York for 3 years, so I can say with confidence. We are heard with great attention. We are respected. we rarely lose elections in UN. We have done some very interesting work in the UN in terms of ideation, whether it was anti-colonialism, anti-apartheid, the whole concept of developing countries, G77, the largest troop contributor to UN. So now for us, the outstanding question there is getting our permanent Security Council membership. You're asking my honest opinion, it's not going to happen anytime soon. So that's where it is in UN. They'll keep talking about it, but I don't think it's going to happen easily. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Sir, 1 second.
क्या कर रहे हैं यार? Diaspora is again a very interesting relationship that we have built with our diaspora. Earlier, it was one of, they looked down upon us that we haven't got our act together, and we thought they benefited from India's education system, this, that, and they've gone abroad and they only keep lecturing. It's completely transformed now. And I think if you're asking 1%.
Good evening, sir.
Yep.
Sir, I wanted to ask that what was the exactly aim of creating Quad?
Let me, that you must do some reading on that. I can explain concepts, but what was reasoning I mentioned to you, maybe you didn't pay attention. It was basically all the Quad countries were concerned about Chinese aggressiveness. And so the idea was that the major powers in that region, which is Japan, India, Australia, and of course US as a maritime power there, to come together to try and contain China, but to give some stability to the region and put pressure on China that the others put together a very powerful grouping which would stand up to its aggressiveness in that region. So that was the main purpose of Quad.
So, sir, if it is asked that has the Quad achieved its purpose? So, like, what could be the answer?
So what is your answer? देखिए इंटरव्यू आपको देना है, and so I suppose you are prepared. What would be your answer?
I think it has, like, to an extent, contained China because its aggressiveness has reduced a little bit. But at the same time, the objective Quad has become not a very clear-cut, concrete, purposeful organization or grouping.
Yeah, so idea was to contain China's aggressiveness. Okay, that was,
yes,
and that problem still remains. So Quad remains relevant. Now, whether Quad will become a military alliance, at this stage, I don't think so. At this stage, okay. But who knows? We'll see tomorrow.
Okay, sir.
Diaspora. So diaspora is now, we get about $125 billion as annual remittance. So that's a huge amount of money for us. And it has substantial impact on political life. Mauritius, Prime Minister of Indian origin generally, Suriname, Fiji, and many other countries. Increasing influence in US, you can see it, top countries are being run by Indian people of Indian origin. Same thing in Canada, UK, we had a Prime Minister, Singapore, we had a President, Foreign Minister, a number of them. Australia also is growing, but in many other countries it's growing. At one point, we had an Irish Prime Minister who was of Indian origin, a Portuguese Prime Minister of Indian origin. It's already happening. And so our relationship with the Indian diaspora has changed completely. And I think if you're asking one man who should be given credit for this would be Prime Minister Vajpayee. He understood he was a man who looked way ahead in the future. And he realized this will become a great source of strength. So we have to have a very close relationship with people of Indian origin. So Pravasi Bharati Divas was started, Pravasi Sammans were given. Now they are regional PVDs. We have a parliamentarians conference of Indian origin. They all gather. So we are doing a lot in terms of strengthening our relationship with diaspora. And diaspora has now become a great source of strength for us, and also a great source of influence for us, and also economic returns. They had some of the largest companies, so they tend to look favorably at India as an investment destination. And this will only continue to grow as we go forward. Next slide, please. So conclusion, very quickly, India's prestige is rising, so is its reach. Relations with neighbors is a mixed bag, as some of you had already commented. Pakistan-China axis is working hard to stymie us in the neighborhood. In Bangladesh now, they have been successful. But again, these are all temporary things. Maybe things will change soon. Relations with US and some of the major powers in East Asia, Japan and Korea, are growing. So are other countries, Vietnam, as I mentioned, Indonesia. They are increasingly, Philippines. So they are increasingly working with us in terms of defense cooperation also. Relations with Gulf countries is phenomenal now. And relations with Russia is strong, but would require delicate handling because, as I said, Russians should not feel that we are a part of American camp. And once the Ukraine issue is sorted out, I think we'll be back to normal. So even those stresses will go, hopefully, if President Trump is true to what he has said, and Ukraine problem is taken off the shelf, then I think it will become easier for us. We don't have to do the tightrope walk. And US-China relations will continue to have implications on us. So that's the broad conclusion. Now, any questions you have, let's quickly address those.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Anybody who has questions, we can take all the questions.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Sir, are we living in a unipolar world or multipolar world or like bipolar world, which is dominated by USA and China?
No, it's not bipolar for sure. It is multipolar, but US is still the most powerful economy and the most powerful military. So it is heading in the direction of multipolarity, I would say so. But US, at least for the next decade or two, very clearly will remain the most formidable economy and power.
Okay, sir. And coming to Asia, it is dominated by China. Like China's economy is like 4 times that of India. So for China also, like it is true that
dominating having a large economy does not necessarily mean you can dominate outcomes. Okay. China can't dominate outcomes in Korea or in Japan or in India.
Okay, sir.
They have a large economy, they benefit from it, they have trade surpluses with perhaps most Asian countries. But they are not the power in Asia. They're an important power in Asia, but they are not the power in Asia. That's how I put it.
Okay, sir. Yeah, got it.
So I have 2 questions to ask, sir.
Yes, please.
So first is like, who will gain more from the fall of Assad regime in Syria? And the second is, why like in the past 75 years, why we haven't been so much involved with the Latin America region? What was the cause? What were the causes for that? So
it's very simple. First, let me answer the Latin American part, which is the easy part. You see, besides being a very large country, you have very little to offer. Okay? Till the last 20-30 years. And now, once we got into the Manufacturing Act, the Services Act, Our presence in Latin America is increasing by leaps and bounds. पहले कुछ बनाते नहीं थे, आप क्या बेचेंगे उनको? तो खाली बातें कर सकते थे ना. So nothing to buy from them. You couldn't. Your economy was so small, you couldn't buy much from them in terms of raw materials, etc. And you didn't make any great manufactured products. तो क्या बेचेंगे वहाँ पे आप? ठीक है ना? The relationship was more emotional, more at level of meeting of minds, respect for each other, fondness for each other, but nothing more. It's not so today. We are now a very active player in the economies of at least some of the countries of Latin America, and this will only continue to grow. So that's the basis for moving forward. And the second was Syria. What will be the fallout? It's too early to say. Assad regime fell because, from what everyone hears and reads, it was more because some of the soldiers and generals were bought over. And that's how it collapsed so quickly. What will happen is still very uncertain, because Assad was the common enemy, so everybody got together and they brought him down. Now, the battle lines are being redrawn there, because those who are taken over are basically the ex-ISIS guys. Yeah, hardcore Salafi thought process. So they'll become a problem for everybody around, including Israel. It's just a matter of time. Because in Syria, it was 13% Alawites ruling over the remaining 87%, which was of which 10% were Christians, some were Druze, some were Kurds, 15% Kurds, and rest were Sunnis. Now, 13% people are dominating everybody else. Now that has changed. That has gone away. Sunnis are the majority there, overwhelming majority there. And if you add Kurds, was also Sunni, the overwhelming majority is Sunnis. Now, if it falls into a very hardcore Sunni thought process, like the ISIS, which is what Jolani was from. So it's not good news for anybody there. You can already see the difficulties between Turkey and the Kurdish group in Syria called SDF, Syrian Democratic Force. This is basically a Kurdish group. They already loggerheads with Turkey, and Turkey had helped Jolani. So what you've seen is just the beginning. There'll be a lot of unraveling, and then perhaps someone will regret ki kya kar diya. What have we brought? It was much better to have Assad than have these guys. But that's too early to say. So we'll see how it pans out.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I have a follow-up question, sir. As we are seeing the unfolding of events in West Asia and Red Sea and Ukraine and Russia, some are saying, can we call it as third world war? That is the first question, sir. The second question, how should India react to all these happenings in the West Asia regions?
So in terms of reaction, I mean, the only thing we could have done was get our people out, which you have done. Okay.
Yes, sir.
For the rest, you are not a major player there. You don't understand this thing. Okay. And at times, it's better to mind your own business than meddle in places where you can't bring anything on the table. So, can you influence any of the groups operating there? Answer is no.
Okay, sir.
So, dakhal karne ki zarurat nahi hai. You see, we have this perhaps self-created desire कि हम जाके वहाँ problem solve करेंगे. और हम सारी प्रॉब्लम अपने मुल्क की भी सॉल्व नहीं कर पाते. We can't solve all our problem, country's problem. Why should you meddle outside unnecessarily? Has anybody asked you to come and help them? Answer is no.
No, sir.
So why should you offer?
Some say we can play a mediator role.
Such as that's why I'm saying mediators. Has somebody asked if we are mediators?
Yes, sir.
Has anybody asked us to mediate?
No, sir.
Then why should you unnecessarily start jumping?
Okay, sir.
See, let's not assume too much of sense of self-importance. Okay, we are important, we are powerful, but you must know what battles to fight, where to meddle, where not to meddle. What happens there may have consequences, but for the moment, remote. Because we have good relations with all the players there. We have good relations with Iran, we have good relations with Iraq, we have good relations with Israel, we have good relations with Egypt, okay relationship with Turkey, Saudi, entire GCC, we have great relationship. तो दखल करने का फायदा क्या है? कुछ none of them has asked you कि आप जाके solve करो इस problem को, या why not do it?
Okay,
Why should you start saying मैं जाके problem solve? किसी ने पूछा आपसे?
नहीं सर.
फिर आप क्यों ये दिमाग में क्यों आपको आएगा कि हम जाके solve करें problem?
Okay, sir.
And secondly, what do you bring on the table? What leverages do you have there on these guys? None.
Nothing, sir.
The best is mind your business. Mind your business, do your contingency planning. Your contingency planning is agar aapko someday if you have to evacuate the 1 million Indians in Kuwait or the 3.5 million Indians in UAE or 2.5 million Indians in Saudi. That is when you have concerns. Or a state of Hormuz is blocked and you can't get oil. Those are the contingency planned for and work to the extent it's possible to do it. But unnecessarily going and meddling in things where nobody has asked you to come and meddle is only inviting trouble for yourself. And you have enough trouble around. So why should you cost more?
Well, but there were many articles in the newspaper which were saying that India, due to its rising geopolitical power, should play a mediation role in the Russia-Ukraine war.
It sounds so good, na? कि आप सबको लॉलीपॉप दीजिए, सब खुश रहेंगे, कहने में क्या बिगड़ता है? जिसने लिखा है उसको तो कोई बिगड़ता नहीं ना, वो लिख देता है साउंड वेरी गुड, देखो कितना थॉटफुल है, कितना अच्छा एडवाइस दे रहा है, ठीक है ना?
Yes, sir.
But has anybody asked you? So obviously they don't consider you a very important player there, because they consider you neutral. उसमें किसी को दो राय नहीं है. Maybe some may feel कि भाई आप you are a little pro-Israel, but they understand why. For the rest, they know as you are a benign country, you have problem with all. That's about all. Nobody is asked to come and solve the problem there. So why should we offer it? Because in any case, you don't bring much on the table.
So can we consider it as a third world war, sir?
No, it is not a third world war, because the war is right now only between Ukraine and Russia. NATO troops have not entered the war. They're only giving equipment, supplies, whatever.
Okay, sir.
Okay? So it's not a third world war. It's limited only to Europe. And let's not assume that like in time of First World War, Second World War, because Europeans are fighting, all of us have to get engulfed in there. Why should we get engulfed? It's their battle, let them sort it out.
Okay, sir.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
So, like in the recent years, we have seen that India has been very capable in balancing all these different blocs and all the interests. So, what can be the main reasons or the reasons for India to be able to successfully implement this multi-alignment strategy? The important points, if you could tell us, how is India able to?
What is your thinking?
So I believe most importantly is the diplomatic prowess of our foreign policy makers. Like we have moved away from the idealized perception of international relations to a more practical approach, where we are dealing with the countries and situations on a case-to-case basis, rather than having a predefined notion of how to act in a certain situation.
Okay.
Sir, rest I can only come up with this.
So what is the question? I don't understand the question.
My question was that India has been very capable recently of balancing all these different blocs and the conflicting interests, like let's say US or China, US or Russia. So how is India able to do that? What are the factors that enable India to implement the multi?
Because in part we mind our business.
Okay.
We don't go. Number one, mind our business. Number two, we are a strong country, so everybody would like to be friends with us. Okay. Yes. Number three, you are a large economy, a growing economy, so people want to work with you because they stand to benefit also from your market, from your technology, etc. So those are the reasons, not because they love India or they like sarees or they like whatever paneer tikka or whatever. So that's it. And but we must understand that meddling everywhere is not a license that anybody is given us.
Yes, sir.
Except
So-
our
so-
media, nobody else says please go and sort this problem out, go and solve this problem out. उनको लिखने में बिगड़ता नहीं है कुछ भी.
Right.
It sounds very good.
Sir, so again,
India should use the good offices to solve problem. Who has asked you to come and solve the problem? Nobody has.
yes, yes. Sir, so the pivotal position of India in today's global context is also because it's in favor of other countries' interest as well that India
I
grows.
don't know. We are at a stage yet where I would call ourselves as a pivotal position. Pivotal position is when whichever side you go is going to win. Okay. So right now, I don't think that is a scenario. We are an important player. We are a significant player. We are a growing player, and that's how I would explain ourselves.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Sir, may I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So my question is with respect to Israel-Hamas war and what like
Question related to
Israel and Hamas war.
Okay.
So, sir, like the ICC has recently issued the warrants against the Prime Minister of Israel, and everyone is accusing them for war crimes, especially the International Criminal Court. But, sir, like, what is India's stand on these humanitarian aspects, given the fact that neither India nor Israel is party to ICC?
Yes.
So, and sir, on the other hand, we are votary for the humanitarian laws. So, sir, how can we justify India's position if, like, it is asked that how to?
What position have you taken?
Sir, I am not totally aware. Like, India has not.
So you are saying justify something, but you must know what you have to justify.
Sir, like, Israel has made illegal settlements in West Bank. But we are also like we are not directly countering Israel on. We are not commenting Israel or Hamas acts in this particular war.
That's what I'm trying to explain to you. You don't have to meddle everywhere. You don't have to take a position on everything.
So I am just asking, like, if in case the board members ask that what should be India's stand in this peculiar condition, like we are not party to the ICC, but on the other hand, we also have to vote for the humanitarian cause. So how to balance?
But then we are voting for Palestinians on this issue. And we are saying aid resume honi chahiye, they should not be stopped, etc., etc. We are making all the right noises. We have not legalized Israeli occupation, or rather Israelis taking over parts of West Bank. We are not supported that. We still say that it should be it's a two-state solution based on 19th UN resolution. That's what we are saying.
Yes, sir.
But you can't make other people's battles your battles.
Right, sir.
That temptation has to be eschewed. Foreign policy, as I said, is promoting India's interest, not promoting what is right in life. So when you make foreign policy, what is right, what is wrong, what is correct, what is not correct, those are only one factor. But what you think of is where are my interests? You make foreign policy pursuing your interest while maintaining the broader principles on which a foreign policy is based.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
And we have condemned what Hamas did on 7th. Unequivocally, we have condemned that. Which is wrong.
Yes, sir.
We have also not supported what Israel is doing. Everything that Israel is doing, we're not supporting it. ठीक है ना?
Yes, sir.
That's about all. That's the only thing we can do.
Okay, sir.
What more can we do? Or what more should we do?
Sir, I have a question, not from the current convention. Sir, what if Donald Trump impose more tariff on India? What option do India has? What if America impose? Yes, sir. I'm repeating. Sir, what if America impose more sanctions or tariffs on India as Donald Trump is threatening? What options India has?
No. First
What options India has?
first of all, he's not talking of any sanctions on India or on any other country. Let's be very clear about it. Sanctions is a very specific term. Okay.
Sorry, sir, tariffs. I was trying to say tariffs.
But then be very clear. This choice of words is very important. When you're answering questions, it's very important. When you answer questions, it's very important. So first of all, he's only said he'll increase tariffs. Okay. Now, what is our position? We'll deal with it. Let's see what everybody has to do. I'm sure our team is there right now. Foreign Minister Jaishankar, Foreign Secretary Vikram Mishri, they are there talking to both the outgoing administration as also the new administration. Okay. And as I had mentioned earlier, that I don't think we will loom large on Donald Trump's radar. Okay, because we are not among the top 7-8 countries with which America has trade deficit. We are 9th or 10th. Okay, so we are not the priority. Priority is China, for example. Priority is ending Russia-Ukraine war because that frees a lot of resources. Priority is his own domestic agenda, where we may have some problems because we are about like a little over 700,000 illegal immigrants. And when they start sending them back, and when you see planes coming here and everybody beating chest, that could cause emotional issues. But then, I mean, no country can say justify, please keep my illegal immigrants. We can't. Nobody can do that, no? So there will be stress points, but I don't think it would be for us. It will be as stressful as the other countries. And at the end of it, it will mean we may have to reduce some tariffs on some products of interest to America, because a lot of products that we sell to America, Americans don't make. So if they don't make, they'll have to still buy it from us. Now, if Donald Trump wants to make it 20% more expensive by imposing tariffs on us 10 or 20%, Americans are going to pay for it, first and foremost. So let's just wait and see. Right now, what he's a big bully, blusters. Let's see what eventually does, and we'll have conversations. And there, we have good friends in US, both in the administration, current administration. There are people with whom we work. They know us well. They like us. As also a lot of very prominent CEOs and a very, very influential Indian diaspora, many of whom have worked very hard for Mr. Trump. So let's not start jumping the gun. Let's wait and see what it does. And then if it's a question of reducing tariffs on some products of interest to them, we'll do it. In any case, we have very high tariffs. So if you have to reduce some, we'll reduce it. That's just a question of common sense economics.
Sir, may I ask one question, please?
Yes, please. Yes.
We have fought 3 wars with Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
And Israel has always supported the side of India because the war was always started by Pakistan. And Israel was always on our side. In the consequent years, there was also war between Israel and Palestine, where the Palestine has started the war, and we have not taken the so much strong side with Israel as Israel has supported India. So why?
No. What do you mean? Why should take sides? If you can get away without taking sides, why should take sides?
Sir, shouldn't it be our moral responsibility?
Why? Don't bring morality into foreign policy making, okay?
Okay, sir.
That's just a part of it. I mean, we are not dealing with moral issues of life. We're just dealing with what's good for India. So if you can get away without taking sides, why should you take sides?
So one thing I have to ask, sir. Sir, we'll be facing questions from other dignitaries just like you, sir. So, sir, what type of...
You are forcing no questions from me. I'm facing questions from you guys.
Sir, no, sir. On the interview day, sir, we'll be facing questions from the board members and the dignitaries over there. So, sir, what type of answers impresses you, sir, or what type of answers can impress the board? So, this thing, I mean, I want to ask.
Okay, that's very simple. First of all, know your facts. This is important. If you don't know the answer, my sincere advice would be, please say, I don't know the answer. If the question is very difficult, or if you can't recollect the answer, which often happens when you're surrounded with 7 people or 6 people who are interviewing you, all more than 60 or 70, and you are in your 20s. They don't mind it. They understand this. There's enormous pressure on you because it's a very important job at stake. They have nothing at stake. So they are very helpful. Understand this thing. They will not like try to, if they try to pin you down, it's just to see whether you are consistent or not. So what they are seeking is not the right answers, because some questions have no right answers. All that they are seeking from you is whether your answers are well reasoned, based on facts and on sound arguments. And there's consistency in that argument. Okay? आपने कहा नहीं कंडेम करना चाहिए इजराइल को या पैलेस्टाइन को, तो हाँ करना चाहिए, फिर बाद में कहा नहीं करना चाहिए, which means thinking of your own. They just want to see, with the facts available that should easily be available, are known, whether you can come to conclusions which are backed with reason. That's about all. They don't expect you to solve all the life's problems which they could not solve when they were in the jobs. Whether it's poverty, whether foreign policy, they've all been there. Most of them are retired civil servants. So they don't expect you to solve problems in that room in 15 minutes, what they could not after working for 35 years in the government, each of them. That's not the expectation. It's just the expectation of how you convey your answers, the cogency of your argument, the crispness of the language used, and if there's a follow-on question, you answer that also reasonably, again, based on reason and logic. And that's why I right in the beginning explained to you the purposes of foreign policy. So when they say, why don't you interfere in Israel or Palestine? I said, why? If I can get it without involving myself, why should I? Does it serve my interest? Answer is no. Why should I meddle? Has anybody asked me to meddle? Answer is no. Why would I meddle? So that consistency is important.
Right, sir. Thank you so much.
So once you're consistent there, it will be very easy to answer any question.
Okay,
and if you don't know the answer, please don't guess, don't bluff. They've been there, they've seen all. Just be honest and say, "Mujhe nahi malum." You see, if it's something which you ought to be knowing, particularly subjects that you educated yourself in, whatever, engineering, this, that, then that shows you're not thorough in what you're doing. That's a black mark. But on issues like foreign policy, where it's ever-evolving situation, they understand nobody's master. So they fully understand your answer should be cogent and reasonable. You must give reason why you're suggesting what you're suggesting. That's about all. So, and if you don't know the answer, just say, I don't know about it. Right in the beginning. Because then they will ask you something else which you can answer. But getting into a trap of, telling one lie or one bluffing will eventually get caught. And you would have wasted 5-10 minutes instead of just 1 minute simply saying, I can't remember, I don't know the answer. But as I said, this can't be used on subjects that you ought to be knowing. Which are your main subjects. And commonsensical issues where it will be reasonable for somebody well aware of what's happening to answer the question. Like they ask you, Ukraine, Russia war, you can't simply, ladai ho rahi hai kya? Mujhe nahi malum. I don't know, sir. Then they say, come on, you're being foolish. But how to solve it? Look, the whole world has tried to solve it. No, they are not succeeding. Am I right? For
Yes.
2 years they are solving it. तो क्या उम्मीद करते हैं आप solve कर दें उसको 5 मिनट के अंदर? That's not the expectation. Yeah, let's be serious about it.
Okay.
If the whole world put together is not able to solve it, or doesn't want to solve it, what chance is there? Hell, they expect that you will be able to solve it. They only expect reasonable answers from you. Grounded on facts and core reasoning, which should be consistent.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much, all of you. And wish you all the best for your interviews and good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.